Good afternoon. Welcome to the JB Font channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. The JB Font channel is available on all major podcast platforms, so go ahead, subscribe to me there. Also part of the Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can find me every single time on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, though you will not be seeing me this Thursday night because there are some things that we have to move around. But I just want to say you can also find me there, so subscribe to Revolutionary Blackout Network. Now, if you guys have not already, then you can also subscribe to my Substack, where I also do write articles, upload clips, as well as live streams, so you guys can get those notifications. Just go to jbfont.substack.com so you guys are made aware whenever I do go live, so you guys have that there as well. So, in addition to that, thank you so much for this special stream. We're going to be talking about a few things. I cannot wait to get into what we're going to be talking about. I'm still waiting for Richard Medhurst to get in, so he's running a little bit behind. But in the meantime, one of the things that we're going to actually do is we're actually going to go into the chat, say our hellos and salutations, and as soon as when he comes in, then we can start our discussion moving forward. So just want to go in and start saying hello to everybody. We have Janice coming in saying East Liverpool, Ohio. Thank you so very much, Miss Janice, for coming in, and thank you so much for joining. We have RIP George Hashbass says, throw a shoe at the like button. Yes, please go ahead and give me a like. That pushes me out into the algorithm. So thank you so very much for that as well. All right. George Hashbass says, could West be joining forces with PSL? I'd love to see Claudia de la Cruz as VP. Interesting. We can talk about that. All right, CBC Voter coming in saying, happy Thursday at JB. Thank you so very much, CBC Voter. Good to see you. Serena Sawyer coming in saying, greetings, comrades. Good to see you as well. Bryce Smith coming in. All right, coming in hot saying, RIPC, CBC Voter, saying hello to everybody. Good to see you as well. Yes, I got to get all snazzy for my homie, Richard Medhurst, which, in fact, look, speaking an angel, he shall appear. Are you ready? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Richard, if you're ready, give me a thumbs up. All right. Perfect.
But I'm ready. Good to see you.
All right,
how are you doing?
Special guest for today is political commentator, all-around great guy, also friend of the Global South and Palestinian people. My guest, Richard Medhurst. Good to see you back on the channel, Mr. Richard.
Thank you for having me, brother. It's really good to be back with you. Thank you for the grand overture as well.
It is deserved, sir. It is deserved. And I just want to thank you so very much for being kind enough to be able to, grace me with your presence. And there's been a lot that's been happening around the world in the last couple of months, really.
It's good,
right?
Yeah. It's the world is really transforming right before our eyes in a very, very significant way.
Absolutely. In fact, I just have a few things that I would like to go over. You're going to roll your eyes at some, and I'm sorry, but we got to talk about these things that's in the news. But at the same time, I'm just like, well, these are very important, especially when it comes to geopolitics. First thing I actually want to talk about is Nazigate. That's what I'm calling it, Nazigate.
That's what it is.
So I just want to remind everybody what took place over the last week or so. I actually talked about this on my channel as well. And I just want to give your initial thoughts about this, as well as any new news that you have came up with, or not came up with, but you have discovered regarding this, because I saw some things, especially regards to Poland in this case, and I was just like, whoa, what in the heck is going on? I actually wrote an article about this, and I'll tell you about it in a second. But I just want to share this as well. So let's see. Let's just, for the audience to refresh their memory.
Zelensky's speech received at least a dozen standing ovations. There was also one for this man, a 98-year-old Ukrainian Canadian who fought for Ukrainian independence against the Russians during the Second World War.
Now, hang on. What she said
Journalist.
against the Russians in the Second World War. Hang
Yo.
on. Let me put my face up here. Against the Russians in the Second World War.
Look,
Something ain't right, Richard.
Something's not right. Anytime. Look, here's the rule of thumb. If they were fighting against the Russians during World War II, they're Nazis. That's it.
Say it again for the people in the back. Because here's the thing. A lot of people are like, well, who was the big bad in Second World War? Have you not studied history? No,
this is scandalous. They're scandalous, honestly. It's like a scandal within a scandal. Really.
So
no, they're shameless. Canada, especially, as a country that was, with Anzac, so basically you had Australia, you had New Zealand, Canada, who were all part of the British Empire, and so fighting under one flag. And so, during D-Day, for example, you had different beachheads that were attacked at the same time. Some by British, like Sword Beach, and then you had Omaha, which was attacked by the Americans, and the Canadians also took part in the invasion, and they fought later in Cayenne in France. So, I don't need to remind Trudeau what his country was doing in World War II. So it makes it's like, for any country to glorify Nazi would be disgusting, but one that lost people fighting in World War II is even more disgusting. They're insulting themselves and everybody else. They're insulting themselves. That is the standard to which they've stooped. And I want to make something clear. Sure. This is not just about one dinosaur Nazi from Ukraine who's in the Canadian Parliament. The problem is that the next morning they just go back to funding other Nazis in Ukraine. Like the disciples of Stepan Bandera and Hitler and people like this old guy, like the dinosaur. So they give them weapons, they give them training, they teach them how to make bombs. Like CNN was filming a British soldier teaching a bomb making class, like in a classroom, like where it's like almost something from a movie, out of a movie. And that's the problem. Like that what's going to happen after, like, if this is not bad enough by principle, what about afterwards when all these weapons are in the black market, or simply still in the hands of the Ukrainians? And even if 1%, let's say 1% of the Ukrainian armed forces, or let's say 0.5% are Nazis, you're still giving weapons to Nazis. Like, I don't really understand why this needs explanation.
Yo, like, real talk. And let me just share this as well, because it's like the denial is like crazy. So yeah. All right. So here's what this gentleman, Jason Cherniak, said. He said, I was in Parliament for Zelensky's speech. When a supposed war hero was introduced, I stood up and applauded. I assumed he was a partisan who fought communist occupation after World War II. Now I've learned he was a volunteer member of an SS unit. I felt sick to my stomach. But wait a minute. If you are fighting in World War II against the Russians, wouldn't that, like, bro, you're not getting off this easy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. They're gonna go back the next morning to, like, they'll some of them will apologize, and the Speaker of the House resigned in Canada, but they're and Trudeau, he issues like a half apology, not or a quarter apology, and then the next day they're giving weapons to Nazis. This is really, really screwed up. You can see Al Qaeda being the product of the CIA, who also gave weapons and training. And if you compare it dollar to dollar, it's actually far more that's going to Ukraine now. Okay, so the quantity of weapons, the training that is like out in the open, is far more advanced and serious and larger on scale. So to think that there won't be any blowback or splinter groups, Nazi groups that go on to use that training and use those weapons, is wrong. because I fear that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, this guy was literally part of the 14th Waffen Grenadier Division of the SS.
Yeah. Right.
So by that, and it's not like he was drafted. Like, you can
no.
say this about many U.S. troops who fought in World War II, that they were drafted. And so because they were
Yes.
drafted.
Sorry. The baby fell. I gotta take you to emergency.
Right. Because he was drafted, you can argue and say, well, he really had no choice. He was either that or jail, right? This guy literally volunteered.
Of course, yes. Yeah, SS units are volunteer. You know what you're getting into. So, there's no secret. The thing is that even with the Wehrmacht, which is the combined German armed forces in World War II, so all the branches, even then, despite them also being drafted, the Wehrmacht still participated in the massacre of Poles, of Jews. They provided logistics and infrastructure for the Einsatzgruppen, so these advanced units that would go into just literally lay waste to entire villages one after the next. In their minds, quote unquote, cleansing the German Lebensraum, the living space that they need. So yeah, I mean, they're to be not just in the Wehrmacht, but especially in the Waffen SS. I mean, this is, come on. I mean, that guy, I don't even understand how he shows his face in public. You would think that Nazis who escaped after World War II would just run away and hide in a corner quietly and hope no one discovers. And in Canada, they have monuments for this, for the 14th Division of the Waffen SS, like actual monuments dedicated to them. You had thousands of these Ukrainian Nazis emigrating to Canada, or should I say, running away and escaping, war crimes tribunals, running away there. And he is one of them, this Hunka that they glorified and saluted in Parliament.
Well, I mean, look, and I think a lot of people are realizing this, that there is an embrace of fascism in plain sight that a lot of people
this
just
is
don't
actual
realize.
Fascism. This is, I was I wanted to make the point, like in American mainstream political discourse, the word Nazis is a bit overused and diluted. Here, there's no mistake about that. This is like a Nazi in the flesh. There's no, it's unequivocal. It's extremely clear. No one is saying he's even a neo-Nazi. No, he's a Nazi. That's it. Period.
Yeah. Pretty much. And if anybody wants to deny this, like, it's literally in our history. If anybody's watching, I want you to do just a 5-second Google search and search the words Operation Paperclip.
Oh, yeah.
Just do that. I talked about this on my channel about a week ago, right?
Yeah.
Look at Operation Paperclip and look at how many Nazis were brought back into the United States. And I say back because technically, if you really want to think about it, fascism actually started here. But they brought them to the United States to learn from them. Fascists were even in our space program in NASA.
Of course, they're running it.
Yeah, they're running NASA. So if that doesn't surprise you, like, it doesn't surprise me because, I got to study that. But it's like the old adage goes, those who do not study history are doomed to repeat it. We're literally repeating history right now as we speak.
Yeah.
People need to wake up.
Yeah.
And this is why I wrote my Substack article talking about, if you're Black, you need to pay attention to this proxy war in Ukraine, because this literally means that the United States is embracing a group of people that don't want you to exist.
Yes, that's correct. Yep. That is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really shocking. It's really disgusting. Like it would be, I don't want to say half a problem, but I'm speaking figuratively. Like, it would be half a problem if this incident in the parliament was only that, and they weren't funding Nazis in Ukraine. The problem is that they are arming them and training them and Operation Paperclip and all these things. It's like it never ended. It's been continuous process since World War II, and that's disgusting. That's really disgusting. And I think I'd also say there's an element of anti-Russian sentiment or racism, against Russians that's really resurfaced in Europe and in the West, because during World War II, the Soviets were our allies, but secretly people like Churchill, were already planning to attack them, because they just hated them so much. They hated Russians, they hated Bolsheviks, and he had actually already done it before in 1917. The US, the UK, we actually invaded Russia with an expeditionary force because they were turned communist. So for like 100 years now, we've been attacking them, and I think it's disgusting because they lost more than anyone fighting the Nazis. So 27 million people, and they caused the majority of Nazi casualties on the Eastern Front, around 80%. So you don't see that in Hollywood movies, though. The Russians are never there. It's like just us, and no one else. And I think that's really, it's just wrong. It's completely wrong. So to have German tanks and Ukrainian Nazis charging at Russians once again in Ukraine. I mean, the historical connotation of that. What do you think the Russians feel when they are faced with this prospect? Not very nice, to put it mildly.
Yeah,
they're enraged. They're enraged by this.
Of course, it sounds like we already did this. Now we're going to have to do it again. And it was brought out in CBS News that it's not just munitions and military support that's going to Ukraine. The Ukrainians, especially a lot of people who embrace Nazism, are literally also getting grain. They're getting money. They're getting health care. They're getting all these things. And one of the things that a lot of people, like, I showed this and people were like, what? This is from Professor Zinka. It says luxury car sales are up in Ukraine along with all car sales. Mercedes-Benz sales are up nearly 25% over last August, and BMW sales have more than doubled.
Well, it's nice to see where our money is going.
Yeah. Like, look.
Yeah.
BMW, year over year, 119.8% rise in BMW sales.
I want to say something, because I remember when the Syrian refugees were first coming to Europe, people were like, "Oh my God, they have iPhones!" Like as if having an iPhone automatically makes you not a refugee. But in this case, what's happening is that the elites who in Kiev, in the capital, who are the ones getting this money, are siphoning it off, bit by bit into their own bank accounts and buying these luxury cars, while they're sending the youngins and the poor people to do the fighting. I think that's also very disgusting, because they don't tell you that in the media, and they make it seem like, oh, the Russians are having a partial mobilization and they're forcing people into the army and they're silencing anyone who protests. Yeah, well, Ukraine has a full mobilization, or shall we say it's a conscript army now. So you're drafted, that's it. In Russia, you are not every male is drafted. They drafted a couple 100,000, might be slightly higher now, who had prior military experience. Now, I have a friend who actually dodged it because he had already been in the Russian army. So, I mean, you can't blame him for not serving. He did. He already done that. But, the point is that they don't tell you the reality that you have this elite in Ukraine that have always been openly described as corrupt in the Western media. Just like there was no problem in the Western media to talk about Nazis in Ukraine. Everyone knew about this. It wasn't taboo. But now they don't show you this. They paint a rosy picture and say, oh, like these brave volunteers. They're not volunteers. They're drafted. That's it. And I've seen videos, the drone footage of how you got people like lying in fields, and it's very graphic. it's extraordinarily graphic. They don't stand a chance. They do not stand a chance. It's and all the most seasoned Ukrainian fighters and Russian, you could say, on both sides, are already gone. They're gone because they were the first on the front lines at the start of the war. So now it's it's even more tragic because you're sending greenhorns who have no experience just to die, and meanwhile they're buying up all these luxury items. Zelensky's wife, I heard, I'm not quite sure if this is 100% true, but Zelensky's wife was off buying jewelry in New York worth 100, no, not 100, 1 million. I mean, yeah, even before in the Panama Papers, they had implicated Zelensky. So I'm not really surprised, but
Yeah. Meanwhile, you have people like Bernie Sanders arresting Ukraine war protesters at his office.
Yeah.
This actually happened yesterday. Just want to play this really quick. It's one of the last parts about this segment.
Why are you getting arrested, Jody? Why? Holding a sign that says that Bernie is for diplomacy. I'm here to remind him that he knows diplomacy is the right thing. He knows peace is the right thing. We're here to tell him we need peace. He needs to call on Biden to go to the negotiating table. Don't tell us that Putin won't, because the United States isn't. Do it. Let them fail. You're failing right now. Let them fail. People are dying. This happened, I was here 21 years ago, and they didn't listen. And 6 million people are dead because of the war in Iraq. We have to listen. War kills, weapons kill. We have to stop this war. People are dying, and the people in the United States are paying for it.
Does the people in the United States want a war?
No, the people in the United States do not want a war, and they're paying for it. Not only are they paying for it with their tax dollars, but they're paying for it in the shredding of this literal fabric of society. When we think that weapons are the way, what happens? Then the only way that you can have a discussion, the only way that you can work on differences is with weapons and guns. That's not how it happens. Nothing is solved with weapons and guns. Nothing. Where's the leadership that models sitting down at a table and coming up with some agreements? This has to end. We have to stop this war. People were
When he used to say being anti-war. What do we want?
peace. What do we want now? What do we want? Peace.
I mean,
Wow.
what an overreaction. Land of the free.
Yeah. And then on top of it,
Ridiculous.
people like Bernie Sanders are like, oh, we need to send weapons to Ukraine. But
No, we
wasn't it Naftali Bennett, the former prime minister of Israel, that was actually trying to broker a peace deal between Zelensky and Putin? But then wasn't it Boris Johnson, former prime minister of UK, who blocked it and said, no, we don't want that?
Yeah,
It was
that's
literally
correct.
shown, right?
Yeah, that's our prime minister, and I mean he's you could really just call him an errand boy, because he's not going there on his own behalf, but more but rather on the behalf of the weapons industry and more people that are higher up on the food chain. So it's true that they blocked it, and you might remember that the Russians had gone into Ukraine and advanced all the way to the capital around Kiev, right? They had forces there. And everyone thought, well, there's an invasion of the capital impending. What the Russians were actually doing is they holding off while in Turkey, they were trying to negotiate a peace deal. And so the Ukrainians ended up signing a draft agreement. So it was not the final thing, but a draft. Nevertheless, the Russians took the initiative, and as part of the agreement, they withdrew from this outskirts of Kiev. And rather than report this, like these boneheads at mainstream media outlets said that, oh, look, the Russians are retreating because they're too weak to attack Kiev. Like one day they tell you the Russians are plummeting in Ukrainian civilians, and then the next day say, oh, look how stupid they are. Look how bad their weapons are. It's really, they're such boneheads. What the Russians were doing is trying to show goodwill by retreating and trying to end this thing like in the span of a week, and they tried before it even started to engage in diplomacy. And the Secretary General of NATO even confirmed the story that the Russians had sent a draft asking them to not admit Ukraine and not put foreign NATO troops in neighboring NATO countries. So, for example, like putting an Italian unit on Russia's border inside of Poland because Poland is in NATO. So, because obviously you can't tell the Polish army not to be in Poland, but it is reasonable for Russia to say we don't want other armies on our border with Poland, right? So these are very basic requests of first of all, they're diplomatic in nature. No one sent a weapon. It was a draft. No one threatened war. And second, it was to avoid escalation. So it was de-escalation, and they laughed at it. They said it's a non-starter. They just completely ignored the Russians. They didn't even bother responding. And so that, they could have prevented this war. And they didn't. They didn't. On the contrary, this is good for them because they get to make money. The longer the war goes on, the more money they make, and European countries get to empty their stocks of old weapons, and then of course they're going to restock with newer ones. And this doesn't even help Ukraine because Ukraine used to be part of Russia. These are neighboring countries. They are trained on Soviet systems, on Russian systems, and taking someone who's in the army, a professional, and then telling him to like reprogram his entire mind and his split-second reactions and his muscle memory onto a NATO system just because it's good to make money for NATO countries. This is a losing strategy. All these things are gimmicks. This war is not being fought with tanks. It's not being fought with jets. It's being fought with artillery, with mortars, with howitzers and drones. And they could easily supply Ukraine with what the Russians are using to hold the line, but they don't want to do that because there's no money in it. They can't do that even if they wanted.
One of the things that I wanted to bring out was, and I saw this, and I played this on my show, but there was a video from Michael Parenti, and he was talking about this. This is well over 20 years ago. And one of the things that he brought out was that the United States actually wanted to use Nazi Germany to go after Soviet Russia. So they actually kind of wanted to stay back and just let Nazi Germany do its thing and advance eastward towards Russia. But they basically were like, we can't kind of do that now because now the people in our country are calling for us to jump in.
Well, I'll remind people that England was the only country fighting the Nazis for 3 years.
Yeah. And so they wanted them to advance to Russia so that the United States can actually take over Russia, have a puppet government so that they can extract the resources out of Russia. But because it kind of backfired, so then they had to kind of, I guess I got to join in and fight against the Nazis. But then they're giving the Nazis a wink and a nod and saying, come on our side.
Yep.
But here's the crazy part. Nothing has changed because instead of it being Germany, now it's Ukraine. And they're using NATO as a tool to advance U.S. hegemony eastwards so that they can have a puppet government in the country of Russia so they can extract all that resource, the liquefied natural gas, the oil, and the grain, and all those other resources. That's ultimately what this is about.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing having Poland and Germany, because the idea was that they're not going to go past Germany, and they did. And they absorbed all these former Soviet satellite states, or actually, you could say former Russian Empire countries as well, right? So the thing is that Ukraine, though, is really like touching a nerve because the Ukrainian language is very, very similar to the Russian language. As I said, there used to be one country, for a long period in history. People who live in Russia might have family in Ukraine or vice versa. Very, very, very common. So having Ukraine become a U.S. outpost is extremely favorable and such a punch in the gut for the Russians. So it's like extraordinarily power hungry, and they thought they could achieve multiple things at the same time. So to take the resources, just like you said, and I'll also add that the pipelines that some major pipelines go through Ukraine also, right? So That's
Yep,
one thing.
Nord Stream.
Ukraine is also on the Black Sea, so then they could put more in, of their troops in the Black Sea if they choose to do so, because it would be NATO. And the thing is that, at the same time they took out Nord Stream, and that this has, they'll tell you, well, it's because Putin invaded Ukraine. No, they wanted to destroy it, like, 4 administrations ago. Condoleezza Rice was talking about how bad Nord Stream is, and she even said, like, I love this about the neocons. They just give it to you straight. She said, like, we want to sell our gas. That's what she said, right? So we want to sell our liquefied natural gas, and this pipeline is not good for us. So it's they're very straight, as opposed to the Democrats, who will do the same thing, but, like, sugarcoat it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So one of the things I also wanted to discuss was this issue that has happened in the global South. Now, can we all clap it up for Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, like, and Gabon? We got to clap it up for them, because they said, get out, au revoir. I was just like,
I loved it.
I was just like,
they had me shook. No, I look, I have to say something. There's a lot of negativity in the news usually, but this was good. This was good. This was very good. No, this is so good. I've been following this for a long time now, because I did my secondary education in French, so I speak it fluently, and I was especially interested in hearing how it was directly from the French and directly from the Nigerians. And one of my best friends was from Niger, so I knew all about these things growing up, about the uranium. And that's Niger is like one of the most important countries in France's neocolonialist empire, because they need it for both the nuclear weapons that France has, and also for their energy grid, because 70% of France's electricity grid runs on nuclear energy. So Niger is crucial. You can also say it this way: 1 in 3 light bulbs in France is lit from uranium that comes from Niger. So to have a coup there is a disaster, an unmitigated disaster. And this is why they refuse to leave. Unlike, it's easy to lose track, because we've had 8 coups in 3 years, and they're all in former French African colonies. So, they were kicked out of Burkina Faso, they were kicked out of Mali, and they didn't cook up such a fuss like they did in Niger. And it's also because they have military bases there, more than the Americans, actually. So the Americans have 1,100 troops. They have a base in Niamey, in the capital, and then also in Agadez, which is this huge drone base. Very, very, very big. It's the largest U.S. drone base in the world. And that's, so I'll get to I'll come back to Victoria Nuland in a second. I just want to say the French have 3 bases, and they had 1,500 troops. Okay. So I don't know. You could have a very good debate here about to whom does Niger matter the most? But I would always say it's France, because of the neo-colonial stigma, like they wanted to make sure that even though Niger got its independence in 1960, that it's not really independent. And they achieved this with what is called France-Afrique, which is basically Franco-Africa or France-Africa. And it's like a scheme that was cooked up by the French president, Charles de Gaulle, who wanted to keep supposedly linguistic ties and cultural ties with the former colonies in Africa. What it's really about is like controlling their money, right? So the money is printed in France, it's minted there. You have always one representative of the French government on the board in each one of these countries. Each one of these countries not only has to use this French currency, but deposit half of what they make in the French treasury, like just straight up mafia stuff, like just give me a cut of everything and I own the currency. And so they changed the name in some of the West African countries, but it literally changes nothing. It's just like, one of these fake, liberal schemes to look like it's decolonization when it's not. And so, there are many, many reasons why France wants to stay in West Africa. And Niger, its size, being in the Sahel and all these things, is very, very important to them. But now it's, it's goodbye. And they have to leave by the end of the year. Niger canceled all 5 agreements, military agreements that they had. And you'll notice that they did not do that with the Americans. I think what happened, and I'm speculating on this point, when Victoria Nuland went there, and they gave her a huge slap in the face, by the way, they wouldn't even meet with her, which in diplomacy means go to hell. So she got in there somehow, despite the airspace being closed. And she's just been promoted to number 2 in the State Department, of course, after what she did in Ukraine with the coup. So she goes to meet with them, and they don't let her meet with Bazoum, who's the deposed president, and neither with Bazoum nor with the head of the presidential guard. And she has to meet with 3 colonels, I think, something like that. And what I think happened, so on this specific point, I'm speculating. I think she said that the United States will not object to the French being kicked out as long as they can stay in there, and they will leave the base in Niamey and only use the base in Agadez because they spent so much money on it. So I think that's what happened.
The United States done threw the French under the bus. They said,
"Oh, of course."
Well, deuces, France. We stand in.
Yes. And if you don't think they would do that, you just look at the submarine deal with Australia, like with AUKUS. France had like this lucrative, unbelievable deal. They called it deal of the century, like Trump cooked up the term or something. And because it was so much money for some crappy diesel powered submarines, and Australia, without telling the French, canceled the deal and then made a deal with England and the United States for nuclear powered submarines, right? So this is to screw with China later on. And they didn't tell the French, and the French were so angry, they recalled the French ambassador in the United States and in Australia, which is like, it's what you would do. So if you had a scale of escalation, this is the second last thing before you would close the embassy. So it's very, very, very serious. And they were so angry. And yeah, the United States threw the French under the bus, and they did it again. That's what I think happened. They really deserve it in this case in Niger. They really deserve it, even though I'm not happy with the Americans saying, but it's funny. It's really funny.
Yeah. The United States is definitely a fair weather friend. Gosh, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
One thing that I actually want to share as well, because a lot of times when we talk about imperialism, can I say this? I mean it a little bit, but it really shows and it solidifies the understanding of imperialism and how bad it is. So this is from the International.
Oh, no. Okay.
And so this says the country of France has 0 gold mines, but over 2,400 gold reserves. Mali has over 860 gold mines, but no gold reserves.
Why do you think that is?
And it's funny. This is like being a chef, a personal chef in the house that buys the food out of their own pockets.
Yeah.
But then you can't eat any of the food that you buy and cook.
Mm-hmm.
But and the thing is, you're a personal chef in your own house.
Mm-hmm.
And you're
Yeah.
eat all the food, but you can't eat none of your food. It's weird.
It's disgusting.
And it's wrong.
Yeah. It's a scandal within a scandal. I mean, truly, like the way that whoever thinks that you had decolonization in 1945 is a fool. Like what we just saw in Niger, that's decolonization. That's actual, that's a country that's been colonized actually kicking out the colonizer, But I will hold off celebrating like truly until the French uranium mining companies are gone as well. That's going to be the final nail in the coffin. No, but this is pretty sweet too.
One of my questions though to you, and I've actually had this discussion with people like Margaret Kimberly from Black Agenda Report, and she said while this is positive, she doesn't like the idea of coups in general because she doesn't feel that the military should be taking control like this, but at the same time, she is happy that France is being kicked out. What is your thoughts on that process? Too?
Yeah, no, I completely understand her reasoning because it is an unstable factor. You know, one example where this is bad, it was what just happened in Pakistan, because Pakistan is a country where the military have always had a huge role to play in who runs the country. They don't always show their hand. It's things that happen in the background that you don't see, things that happen and occur behind the scenes. But they always have a say in who runs the country. So if you need to curry favor with them, you need to win them over in order to have a successful premiership. And by the way, not one prime minister in Pakistan has ever served a full term. It's like, for one reason or another, they either get removed, they get assassinated. It's a shame. I love Pakistan. And what's even sadder is Imran Khan, who is the most popular politician in Pakistan by a mile. And actually, the United States played a role in ousting him because they didn't like him being in Moscow. It's funny though, he had literally no idea that this was going to happen, a war in Ukraine. And these visits are planned like months, or if not sometimes, rarely years in advance. These are politicians. They have busy schedules. They need to plan these things like well in advance. So it's like, it's not his fault that he was there. But regardless, he didn't put sanctions on Russia. He didn't vote the right way at the UN against Russia, and he was buying wheat and gas from Russia. So he had to go. And the military, they play a very big role there. Egypt is another country like this. And, speaking of Arabic countries, just a bit more generally, if you look at Syria after French colonialism, it was very, very unstable country, to the point that you would have a coup, then another coup, and then another coup. And there are two guys who were only president for like 24 hours. Then before there was another coup. Like, that's how unstable it was. And so what brought stability is Assad's father, and he was an officer. So a military coup. Gaddafi, same thing, led a young officer in the army. He led a coup, brought stability to Libya, developed it into a flourishing country, beautiful country. And Abdel Nasser as well, a military man. So, sometimes it can be a good thing for a country to just kind of make it stable so that there is no more political turmoil. But I understand at the same time that if you let the army play too much of a role, this does not become, a functioning or a healthy form of government. They are there to defend the country, right? So that should be their primary focus, and not getting too involved in internal politics, because then, like I said, it becomes too unstable. In this case, though, the only people who could have done something like this and saved, Niger or Mali or Burkina Faso from the French had to be guys in the military, because they had access to the president. Remember, these are not just any units; these are the presidential guard. Okay, yeah. So, and Gabon, the same thing. So they have access to the president, and they're not being evil or something. They didn't, execute him or something. They just put him under house arrest in his palace. Bazoum was allowed to speak to Macron, the French president, every single day. And they allowed the doctors to visit him and all these things. And they did that on purpose because they didn't want to appear like they're nuts. They're genuinely just patriots. They want their country back, and they want to kick out the French. So, yeah, I understand. I definitely understand Margaret's point, and it's something that needs to be considered, especially when you have in Sudan, for example, this was a situation for years now that was very unstable, because they got rid of Bashir, who was the president, and instead of him, now you had two sides fighting. You had Burhan, who's the head of the army, and then Dagalo or Hemeti. Now Dagalo is it's kind of like, you can think of it a bit like Prigozhin in Russia, right? So he's he's not in the army 100%, but he's still with the army, right? So Dagalo, what happened is that he headed a unit called the Rapid Strike Forces, and this unit was created by the former president who was ousted. So while it wasn't 100% integrated into the army, it became, and especially Dagalo became so rich and powerful because he's a rich businessman, just like Prigozhin, that now there was a rivalry, despite the fact that these guys have to be working together. It became a rivalry between the army and the Rapid Strike Forces. And now you can see in Sudan, they're fighting it out. And there was supposed to be a transition in elections years ago, but it just didn't work out. So yeah, I think with Sudan, though, it's a different situation because, by coincidence, maybe, just after the Russians had sorted out a deal for a base on the Red Sea, suddenly the condition was that there has to be the formation of a civilian government and, calm until they can build it. But both sides agreed, and then suddenly they're fighting. I don't know. Maybe it's just coincidence, maybe not. But yeah, I understand Margaret's point, but I can't help being happy to see, the French being kicked out.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I wanted to change gears just a little bit as well is get your thoughts on if you can give us from like a 30,000 foot view of why is there a celebration regarding Bashar al-Assad of Syria. He recently made a visit to China. If you can give my audience just a little bit of a more of an overview of why this is seen as a positive, especially among a lot of anti-imperialist voices.
Well, look, China is, an economic beast. It's going to overtake the United States, whether they like it or not. And, China is a good friend to have, especially if you're a country like Syria that's been destroyed by the United States. By Qatar, by Saudi Arabia, by Turkey, by Israel. Israel is just like bombing it, week in, week out, whenever they like, and bombing key infrastructure like the Latakia port. That's what Israel did. And then they say, oh, there are weapons there. So what? You got weapons going to Ukraine. Does Russia bomb the international airport in Kiev? The thing is that Syria has lost a lot of infrastructure, and on top of that, it's occupied. So it's not like there was a war and now everybody left. No, they're still there. And there's an economic war against Syria in form of sanctions. And so Turkey is occupying a chunk of Syria in Idlib. And then to the east and northeast, you have the Americans that are occupying 1/3 of Syria. And this is where the oil is. So, even though Syria is not a major oil exporter, the revenue from that oil it accounts for 1/4 of government revenue. So it matters a lot to sustain the country. And they're stealing it, they're doing it on purpose to deprive Syria of any revenue and making sure that with sanctions, nobody wants to work with Syria because then they will also get punished by the U.S. So they're isolating Syria, bombing Syria, destroying its infrastructure and squeezing it, and having China provide a lifeline. It's extremely important. China just doesn't give a crap about sanctions. They just don't care. Same thing with Russia. Same thing with Iran. And that's what's actually made these countries stronger. This is what you call resilience. This is resilience. To be crushed by the most powerful country on earth and still come out on top. To still come out strong. That is something that one should admire. And Iran has developed an excellent defense program and is able not only to defend itself but to also help others defend themselves all across the Middle East, whether it's Syria defending itself from the Americans and Al-Qaeda, or whether it's the Palestinians defending themselves from Israel, or Hezbollah defending themselves from Israel, all the way to Yemen. So this is important to have countries that don't care about sanctions, that are strong economically and want to make a multipolar world, right? That's how we arrived to this. Now, if we look at the Silk Road, the Silk Road is the most infamous trade route in human history, right? So it would go all the way from China straight into Syria and then onto the Mediterranean. And Syria has multiple cities that used to be part of the Silk Road, including Palmyra, which was destroyed, of course. The famous gate was destroyed by these terrorists, and then in London they put up a 3D cheap copy in Trafalgar Square, like as if that's supposed to make anyone feel better. And so Palmyra was part of the Silk Road, and Aleppo as well. So to have these cities not only resume their role in this new Silk Road, but also to benefit from that and able to be able to rebuild is very important. China also wants access to the Mediterranean Sea. This is also something to consider. They need it, and you need Syria for that. I'll also just add that Iraq and Iran signed a railway deal, so that's also important to have trade running through those countries, right? So into Iran, into Iraq, into Syria, into the Mediterranean. So you want to have all this access available, not just for China, of course, but for everybody who's going to be involved in this, this mutual growth. It's not just about having China grow. Everybody benefits from this. Everybody benefits from the Belt and Road Initiative. That's why over 150 countries, most countries on this planet, have signed on to it, because they're not stupid. They know it's good for them. The only ones that haven't are Western countries. Italy's the only one that signed on, and then they're the only ones who left, and that's because the U.S. Squeezed them to, made them remember who's the master here, right? And I mean, that's preposterous, because Italy's also on the Mediterranean and mainland Europe, and to not be part of this is just, you're shooting yourself in the foot just to please Washington. It's pathetic watching Europe be like this. And what happened with the Nord Stream 2 and 1 being blown up by the U.S., which is a declaration of war, and no reaction from the Europeans. I mean, it's like, so they are such subservient bastards, because they not only lack self-respect, they also lack respect for their own people and for Europe as a whole, because everybody's going to suffer because of this, just to please Washington. So, the rest of the world is looking at this economic system and model in the West and saying goodbye. We're not interested. And Bashar al-Assad gets such a reception in China because they're not brainwashed by BBC and CNN propaganda, and they know that this guy is he loves his country, and even despite the whole world saying, "Oh, Assad has to go," no, they're the ones who left, and he stayed on. And it's not because he's to be revered as some kind of hero and so on, but he is a hero for standing up for the rest of Syria. I don't want Al-Qaeda running the country. They were this close to taking the capital. I don't want Americans occupying 1/3 of Syria and stealing its oil. I'm not interested in any of these alternatives that they have to offer. So that's it.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you so very much. And to remind the audience, I just want to say that sanctions don't necessarily affect the people in power, but they massively affect the people who are working and poor in these countries. So when you talk about sanctioning these countries, whether it be countries like Venezuela, DPRK, Syria, you're actually dooming the people, the working people like yourself in these countries, to a life of hardship and poverty. And as you were explaining this just reminds me of Cuba and what the United States has done against them, and yet Cuba still remains resilient.
There you go. Yeah.
So that's what this reminds me of. I actually have this clip that I also want to share. This is also Bashar al-Assad speaking as well. And then I have one more question after this on another topic. We can get into that in a second.
اليوم دولة عظمى تلعب دور هام جدا على مستوى العالم، ومع ذلك عندما تتحدث عن الشراكة فهي تتحدث عن مبدأ جديد، لا تتحدث عن الهيمنة. ما ينقصنا نحن كدول في مختلف دول العالم، ليس فقط في سوريا، ولكن خاصة الدول الأصغر تحتاج لهذه الشراكة وتحتاج لهذا الدور، والصين تقوم بهذا الدور، لأن الصين وقفت مع سوريا سياسيا من خلال دورها في مجلس الأمن وفي عدد من المحافل الدولية، بالإضافة للمواقف السياسية الواضحة البعيدة عن المجاملات. هذا الجانب السياسي هو أساسا متطور، ولكن من الطبيعي أن يكون هناك حوار أوسع في هذه الظروف التي يمر بها العالم. هناك الجانب الاقتصادي، جانب التنمية. بالنسبة لنا في سوريا يعنينا كثيرا، لأن سوريا الآن معرضة لحصار اقتصادي سيء وقاسي وخطير من الغرب يهدف لتجويع الشعب السوري.
So talking about how the West actually really wants to starve the Syrian people, I think that's an important point. People need to recognize.
It's he mentioned the UN Security Council. I think it's where China, of course, has a permanent seat and veto power. I think it's 8 times that China blocked anti-Syrian resolutions, whether it was like the Americans trying to get a strike on Syria or put sanctions on Syria. And again, I'm glad you said this about sanctions, because it is that simple to state. It's siege warfare. It's basically it only hurts the majority of the people in that country. It doesn't affect the people in power. I remember, I think they even sanctioned his teenage son, who probably doesn't even have a bank account. I don't know what that's for, but it's not only ineffective, but it's petty and it's just a bullying tactic. Cuba has been under blockade for 60 years. And what do? They develop their own vaccine, and then the United States prevents them from getting syringes to distribute the vaccine. How evil is that? And then I'm pretty sure most people in the United States would be horrified if they actually knew this and would be against that. But the people in Washington do as they please. Syria was a wheat exporter. Syria had plenty of cotton, of wheat, and now people have to queue up to buy rationed bread, because there's not enough bread to go around. There's not enough gas or fuel. I talked to my cousins. They told me sometimes you have to wait 2 days in line just to fill up your car. I mean, I'm not sure how that punishes Bashar al-Assad, but yeah, keep believing that. Keep drinking that CNN Kool-Aid,
Damn.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for giving us that perspective as well, because that's really important. It gives the human aspect. One of my final questions that I wanted to ask you was about BRICS. Dude, BRICS said this wasn't even my final form. They said, okay, you guys think we're bad with 5 countries? Now we're gonna more than double it. Now we're adding 6 countries to us.
Bam.
What is your initial thoughts about BRICS expanding to 11 countries now?
Man, I gotta say, this year, the 2 positive moments in the news were the Niger coup and BRICS. And I was actually very upset because I was accredited to cover it, and I was literally ready to go to South Africa, and it didn't work out with the flights. So I ended up staying and I covered it. So they let me cover it online. And I was not expecting them to add any countries. I even told people beforehand, let's not get our hopes up. I was kind of saying it for myself as well. I said, I don't know if they're going to add any countries, and I don't know if they're going to announce a gold-backed trade currency. I'm sure they will one day, do these things, but I don't know when. And bam, they just hit me. I had to quadruple check, whether I was listening correctly. I was like, no, they really just did that. Oh my God. So yeah, they did. And I was so happy they picked these countries, because a lot of them are in the Middle East, but also it's perfectly logical. It makes sense why they picked them, because Ethiopia, access to the Red Sea, Egypt, most populous country in the Arab world, and access to the Mediterranenean and the Suez Canal, right? And then they picked Iran, which is the number 2 country with the largest. So yeah, it has the second largest proven reserves of natural gas after Russia. And Iran, of course, has like tens of millions of barrels of oil just sitting in storage, waiting to be unleashed as soon as these stupid U.S. sanctions are lifted, and the U.S. gets back into the deal that it orchestrated. So the nuclear deal, right? So then they pick Saudi Arabia, which also tons of oil, big player in OPEC and OPEC plus, and in the Arab world. And then, of course, the UAE, which is also another big player in kind of, just so you understand, like the UAE is not really a country because most of these kingdoms were created by Britain anyway. But the population, 80% of the population are foreigners. It's just a place where people work. It's just a place where also people come to shop. But it's really an economic hub in the Middle East, and they have opened up in many ways. They were one of the first countries to kind of renormalize ties with Syria, which was good. But then they also normalized ties with Israel. That's very disappointing. In any case, having these countries is very good. And in South America, in Latin America, Brazil, the largest country, the economic powerhouse, then bringing Argentina into the fold, which is number 2. So this really makes sense, all of it. And it was very smart how they did it. And, I think that I was talking about how Netanyahu was announcing this stupid plan of his that he wants to have an economic corridor that goes from the UAE, from UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, and then onwards to Europe. What he was really doing is just like, creating or announcing a rival or competitor to BRICS and or the New Silk Road. Okay, so the thing is, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, I think what they're doing is they're signing on to this just because they're looking out for themselves. Whether it's the West that prevails in the end somehow, I don't know how, but with this corridor, and they actually managed to get it working, which I doubt, then they will win because they signed on to it and they're part of it. And if BRICS ends up becoming, or BRICS Plus now ends up becoming the top dog, and the multipolar world manifests itself, then they will also win. So for them, they're just looking out for their own interests. But regardless, the fact that BRICS more than doubled its membership is extraordinary, and people in the West are paying attention. They have no choice. That's why 40 plus countries tried to join BRICS. They know what's happening. This Ukraine war is a catalyst for enormous change in the world. The coups in Niger and Gabon, I have no doubt in my mind, they occurred not just because of the anti-French sentiment and or anti-colonial sentiment, and what happened in the last 3 years, but also because they're looking at this multipolar world being forged right in front of them and saying, we want to also have change and be part of this. And the rest of the world are looking at what's happening in the West, where these sanctions against Russia are so outrageous. It's not just like, oh, they're going to stop the Russians from selling oil, which didn't work, and they made even more money, by the way. But they stole $300 billion from Russia. How do you steal $300 billion from a country and get away with that? No one wants to have anything to do with the dollar or the Western financial system, where at a moment's notice, the United States and Europe will just seize all of your assets. It's not even your assets. It's the goddamn country's money.
Yeah.
This is outrageous. Nothing like this has ever happened. So, that was a warning. Well, it was more than a warning shot. It was really just a straight up threat to the rest of the world that you could be next. And that's why so many countries want to join BRICS at this moment in time. It's not a coincidence.
Yeah. And it's interesting. The West is in trouble. Like Whoopi Goldberg said in Ghost, you in danger, girl. So the funny part was how on Danny Haifong, you were just on Danny Haifong a couple of days ago, which is amazing because you two are brilliant minds when it comes to geopolitics. But Danny also had on recently Michael Hudson and Pepe Escobar. And one of the things that Pepe Escobar actually said, which was very interesting, was that BRICS by itself already have slightly more GDP in these countries than the G7.
Yes.
But now
Oh,
that
yeah.
they added, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just saying, it's true and funny.
Yeah. And so now, since they more than doubled, it's now their GDP combined is now surpasses the G7 and is now on board to surpass the G20, which is the global 20 top nations in the West. And no wonder why the United States, France, Germany, UK, they're shitting their pants because they're like, oh my God, what is going on? And the thing is, it's like the world is slipping through their fingers.
Yeah.
And
they're really scared.
Who's picking up the pieces? China, Brazil, Russia, South Africa. They're like, ha 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 ha. Yeah, you lose, motherfucker. So what's going on?
Yeah, no, it's really it's so funny to watch. And the funny thing is that they've never said you can't join. Like no one in BRICS said America is not allowed to join or apply. Actually, I will say one thing: they did not invite them to the South Africa summit. France wanted to be invited, and they said no. Understandably so. That was again a nice bit of news. But I'm saying just in general, like the New Silk Road and Belt and Road Initiative and all these things, no one is telling them you can't join. On the contrary, it's like, they love this term at NATO, open door policy. So they could join. It's just they don't want to. Wall Street is like, it's our way or nothing, period. So and the city. So the city of London is like it's a financial district in London, and it's funny because it really is its own city. They have their own police force. So yeah. In any case, these power centers, they are against this. They will do whatever it takes to sabotage this. So my fear is that Saudi Arabia and the UAE and India would be the weakest links in this new BRICS Plus. India, they were trying to like beat Modi over the head with this assassination of Singh Niger in Canada, which I mean, obviously that's criminal and it's horrific. I don't know 100% who did it, but I feel like the reason that they're cooking up such a stink about it is because they don't like how India is positioning itself, in BRICS, and they don't want it growing too close to these other countries, and more importantly, they want to use India against China. This is the real point of their strategy. Because look, Israel faked British passports and Australian passports, and they even had someone go to Germany and with a lawyer and pretend that his grandparents, I think, were Holocaust victims, so he could get German citizenship and use that. And they all went as a group to Dubai and assassinated someone from Hamas. And then, you know what happened? They actually they caught this guy, and then instead of prosecuting him for lying and faking all these records to get citizenship, they handed him over to Poland, and then Poland sent him back to Israel. Like no accountability whatsoever for faking passports and citizenship of their own so-called allies, right? Because Israel is apparently an ally of ours. Nothing, zero. It was like immediately covered up, and no one gave a crap. So I'm just using that as an example because it was far more egregious and no one cared in the West. And I feel like, they're using this against Modi. But at the same time, it's important to note that in India, like on the border between India and Pakistan, a border that Britain created, in the Punjab region, you have the Golden Temple, which was attacked, in the 1980s, and then because of that, Indira Gandhi's Sikh bodyguards, two of them assassinated her a few months later. So there is this guy in Canada who was assassinated. He advocates for an independent nation in this Punjab region called Khalistan. So like, I'm just trying to say that in India, the wounds from that episode and turmoil are still fresh, and it's a very touchy subject. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they actually sent some people to assassinate him in Canada. I just don't know if it's true, because as I was saying, this is a good thing for the West to use against India. It could have been the CIA. Who the hell knows? In any case, it's a sad thing that this guy was killed, and it's criminal. But one should be aware of the geopolitical realm and how they're playing this in that arena. So I hope Saudi Arabia and the UAE also don't end up being weak links inside of BRICS. I'm not saying that they're nefarious or they have some bad intentions. I think BRICS is more, has more prospects to offer. It's that's why so many countries, they're dying just to join it. It is the exclusive club, as you said. It's surpassed the G7 and G20 in terms of world GDP. They are the top dog, and this isn't even their final form yet. So Saudi Arabia and the UAE have every incentive to make that work. There you go.
Wow. Yeah. So I just want to keep an eye on phase 2, because we just hit phase 1. Phase 2 of BRICS is going to be coming. Yeah, and I foresee a lot of African countries being part of phase 2, which is going to be damaging for the West. So I'm going to keep my eyes peeled.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you so very much for coming on, giving us this overview and perspective. I definitely value your opinion, and thank you so very much. Where can they find you as well?
So my work is mostly on youtube.com/Richard Medhurst, and you can follow me on Twitter. My handle is @Richie, so RICHIMEDHURST, and also patreon.com/Richard Medhurst. So that's where you can find me, and thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you bringing me on. I always have fun with you, and we always have a great discussion. So the pleasure was all mine.
Thank you so much, and you have yourself a wonderful evening. I know it's later there.
Thank you very much. No, thank you. It's not too late. It's not too late. And besides, I'm always up on the American schedule, so I don't worry.
Yeah. Thoughts and prayers for us.
Yes.
All right, man. All right. Take care.
Thank you, brother. Take care. Right. Bye-bye. Cheers.
All right. That was if you didn't learn anything, I feel sorry for you, but that was a great discussion. I'm always so happy to have on Richard Medhurst to talk about geopolitically what's going on, because if you don't focus on what's going on abroad, then that doesn't translate to to what's going on here. And it makes sense once you start to see what they do abroad versus what they do here. I give an example of Israel, right? A lot of people aren't abreast on what's going on in Israel. Did you know that the Israeli Defense Force, the IDF, actually trains a lot of the police forces here in the United States, and they use those same tactics they use against the Palestinians over there, they do to us over here, especially to a lot of us Black people. This is one of the reasons why it's so important to pay attention to geopolitics and the foreign policy, especially during a presidential run, because their foreign policy will also dictate to how they will do domestically in regards to us as American people. So pay attention to foreign policy and keep up to date on that, because it is very important. It affects how we go about in our world, especially from a governmental perspective. So thank you so very much to people like Richard Medhurst for coming on. Just to let you guys know, if you have not already, please make sure to give a like to the stream. This pushes me out into the algorithm because we're suppressed. So we got to get ourselves out there. So I appreciate that also very much. And if you have not already, of course, like I said earlier, you guys can actually go to my Substack at jbfont.substack.com, so you guys are aware whenever I upload clips, go live, and whenever I write any articles, you guys can find that as well in there. And then on top of it, just want to give a thank you and a shout out to all the patrons on Patreon, as well as Coffee members and anybody that sends me any type of mutual aid via PayPal. Thank you so very much to all. And while you're still here, want to take this opportunity to share with you guys the tiers that I also have on Patreon. If you guys are not aware, I have this as well. So if you guys would like to support the channel, you guys can go either to JB Members, Solidarity, Comrade, JB Fonters, Super JB Fonters, Super Duper JB Fonters, and Mega JB Fonters. So thank you so very much to anybody and everybody who supports the channel as well. So before I get into what we're going to be talking about today, I just want to go over some chats and then we'll move on to our stories. We got some big stories to cover today. Woo, boy, it is going to be busy tonight. Okay, so VS Adams, thank you so much for the chat. They say they fought against the Russians, but it's complicated. When somebody's like, oh yeah, I fought against the Russians in World War II. What were you doing fighting against the Russians? Whose side were you on? Because there's only two sides that I could see. So question that. Always question when somebody says that. Thank you so much for the super chat. DC says, curious to hear Richard's take on the Winter War. Oh, I forgot to ask him this. I'm sorry. But thank you so very much as well. Let me see. Woo! Everybody's in here. Let me see. I saw Sabby in here. It was so good to see my sister Sabby. Oh, by the way, make sure to watch her show. I think she's going to be on at 8 p.m. Eastern tonight. She's having on Dr. Joe Stein, and that's going to go in line with what I'm going to be talking about a little bit later on this show today. But make sure you watch her too, because there's some news, baby. There's some news. I'll get into that in a second. Jacqueline says sanctions are such a vindictive policy. Absolutely. Yep. So that's important. So let me see. I'm just looking for. Let me see. I'm just looking for some chats that are relevant to you guys are also having other conversations in here, I can see. Yes, Quantum Alchemist. Macron was not happy losing that deal. Whew, boy. Whoever says we are more intent upon going to war with other Russia and China, look at the propaganda, and that tells you what you need to know about with whom we intend to pick a fight. Yep, and the United States really wants to do it, but it's kind of funny because the United States really just wants to do it because they're doing better. Like, does that really make sense? Like, oh, they're economically doing better. Okay, like that's like, okay, that's like some Giga Chad wanting to get into a fight with another guy just because he's making more money at his job. Or that's like being somebody who is a salesman in a store, and then the person across the street from you also has a store, but they're doing something different and getting more customers and they're making more money. Suddenly, you want to take a Molotov cocktail and firebomb his store just so that he won't do that well, even though all you have to do is just step up your game. It's like, what? What in the jealousy is going on here? That doesn't make no damn sense. And so that's what the United States is. The United States is just a petulant, jealous child that just can't stand to see other people come up. Because they think, oh, well, if they come up, that means I'm going down. Well, then step your game up, bruh. That's exactly how I feel about the United States. But anywho, let me check the rock. All right. Okay, no tips on Rockfin, but I'll check there in a little bit. So, what are we going to be talking about today? Well, all right. So, losing control. Richard Medhurst was just on. We had a great conversation. People like Trudeau and Macron are sad. And guess what? They're losing. Oh my goodness. Multipolar is making them lose control. So we just had that. What we're also going to be talking about as well is speakers silenced. What happened over the last day? This is going to be interesting. We talked about the potential of this happening between Matt Gaetz and Speaker Kevin McCarthy, but it is over for McCarthy. So we're going to be talking about that. Also, we're going to be talking about the Independent. Boy, this is going to be a story. This is going to be a story of stories. I cannot wait to get into this. We're going to get into that. But for right now, we're going to get into this story. Keeping Orlando poor. This is a story that came across my view, and I'm like, look, this is local to me, so I got to talk about this too. So I want to get into this. So I'm going to be talking about that. As many of you know, I live in Orlando, Florida. I know. Go ahead. Feel sorry for me. It's all right. One of the things I think that a lot of people don't realize is that in Orlando, you need to make above $30 per hour to survive in this city. This is far from the reality for workers. In my neighborhood, many workers are employed in the tourist industries. They're in hotels. They're in attractions like Disney, Universal, and SeaWorld. They are in shops, restaurants. We have a mall that's right down the street. That's this huge, kind of swanky, hoity-toity mall called the Millennium Mall. So you have all these shops here that's really built for tourists. And so that is basically the crux of, especially this part of Orange County that people work in, is that the big part of the industries where they work. But I want to share this article out of the Orlando Sentinel. And it really just talks about how even in local politics, they really just don't care about workers. It's really ultimately about the businesses. Let me make sure. Okay. It says dimming commissioners vote to keep Orange County low-wage labor land. Let me refresh this so they can. Everything looks kind of wonky. Okay. So dimming commissioners to vote to keep Orange County low-wage labor land. So it says for years, Orange County has had the lowest median wages of any major metro in America. We're talking dead last, 50 out of 50. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, lower than even smaller cities with lower costs of living like Birmingham, Alabama, and Louisville, Kentucky. This is what happens when you build an economy around ride attendants and hotel housekeepers. You get a workforce full of people who struggle to make ends meet, as the Sentinel detailed a few years ago in its Laborland series. It says, well, this week, Orange County leaders voted to double down on all that to forever be Laborland. Mayor Jerry Demings. Now, just to let you guys know, Mayor Jerry Demings, who is the mayor of Orange County here in Orlando, is the husband of former Congresswoman Val Demings. If you guys remember, Val Demings actually was a congresswoman. She was also on the short list for Biden's vice president back in 2020. And she also was pretty prominent during the impeachment hearings against Donald Trump. Val Demings is a former cop. She was actually the chief of Orlando police at one time. And at the same time she became chief of police in Orlando, Jerry Demings, her husband, became the sheriff of Orange County Sheriff's Office. So Orlando is literally in Orange County. So you have a husband and wife that are literally head of the law enforcement of Central Florida. I don't know about you, but that sounds like a conflict of interest. A husband and wife, a couple that's literally running law enforcement in Central Florida? Yes. Then Val Demings ran for representative of my district, which is now occupied by Maxwell Alejandro Frost. She was running the 10th district, and she became representative of the 10th district. At the same time, who ran for mayor of Orange County? Jerry Demings. He won, became mayor of Orange County, and then a district in Orange County was represented by Val Demings. More conflict of interest. She decided to run for Senate. She lost against Marco Rubio, which is hilarious. And now, if you look at it, he is still the mayor of Orange County, but it shows where his loyalties lie. This dude's in with the hotel barons, basically. So let's continue. Just to give you guys a little bit of an overview. So Mayor Jerry Demings and most of his peers in the mostly Democratic County Commission, by the way, they're all Democrats, yes, voted to spend another $500 million on a convention center that is nearly 7 million square feet. The Orange County Convention Center is massive. Massive. Trust me, I've been in there. You can put buildings up in that motherfucker. That thing is huge. I wish that the picture would actually load on this, because the Orange County Convention Center is massive. I'll actually look up a picture. Because this thing is massive. I'll show y'all a photo of it. But it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. But it is massive. So this convention center, it says, is 7 million square feet. It is rarely fully occupied and usually runs a deficit, all to please the hotel lobby, even as this community has other pressing needs. Let me just share with y'all. Make sure. Okay. Let me share with you guys the convention center. This is just the South Concourse. I'm not even showing you guys the North Concourse. This is the South Concourse of the Orange County Convention Center. So this was the newer portion that was built. The North Concourse is about a block away. And so they have like a walkway that goes over International Drive that connects the two. But the North Concourse and the South Concourse are around equal in size. So this is it. This is the Orange County Convention Center here in Orlando. All right. So this is a waste of money because it's rarely ever fully occupied. Okay. Just to give you guys some context. Okay. So going back to the article, because we got to talk about this. So while other communities are courting high-wage jobs that pay $40 and $50 an hour, allowing workers to buy a house, pay for college, and save for retirement, Orange County continues to spend billions on $13 and $15 an hour jobs that leaves workers struggling. And county leaders did all this without taking any independent, skeptical experts to vet their spending, probably because they knew what experts would say. The world, after all, is moving away from in-person meetings. And we all know that building a big convention center doesn't magically make community wealthy, since we're at the bottom of the wage heap. Bottom line, if you can't make money running a 7 million square foot building, space isn't the problem. So it says that Mayor Jerry Demings even created a task force to allegedly consider a fresh perspective, but that force was largely a farce. It says, don't take it from me, take it from the task force members themselves. It says it was political theater, that I was merely a character in the mayor's and hospitality industry show. So that's from Stephen Facilla. Says, I find it funny that the poor are also vilified by receiving public funds to live, yet our government is about to spend $500 million to give corporate welfare to the already rich. People like Harrison Rosen, who owns the Rosen Hotel chain. Like, you got the Rosen Center, the Rosen Plaza, and you got one of the biggest hotel resorts outside of Disney called the Rosen Shingle Creek. That place is massive. And you're going to sit here and listen to people like that, and yet my neighborhood, right, the east side of John Young, you guys are going to let this place get gentrified all to hell while we have lower middle class and poor people who work on iDrive, who work in these theme parks, and we're not making enough to live. And they are charging us out the ass for rent. By the way, you cannot get a rent lower in this area, probably lower than $1,600 for a one bedroom. Some of us are lucky to get under $1,600 for a one bedroom, but you can't. And yet people like Jerry Demings, as well as the Orange County commissioners, they want to appease. They basically want to kiss the feet of the hotel lobby and keep the money going their way, when in reality, we're the ones who suffer. Day in, day out, you see 5 o'clock in the morning. What do you see at the bus stop, especially the number 8 bus stops, right, that go down up and down iDrive? What do you see? Hotel workers, a lot who are Latino, who are from Puerto Rico, Mexico, and Haiti, that are working in these positions in these hotels. You got some of these people that have to go and take the number 50 all the way out to the transportation ticket center at Disney, and get there early in the morning just so they can work and operate the rides in the resorts at Disney World. You got some of them that had to take the number 42 so they can look. Trust me, I'm poor. I know the bus routes. You have to take those just to get you had to take the 40 just to get to Universal. By the way, the 40 only runs once every hour, which is stupid as hell. Anyways, so you have to take that to go to Universal to operate the rides there and to work the hotels and resorts there. And so they're not making much. And yet they're stressed out and they're trying to survive in a city that doesn't give, in a county that doesn't give a shit about them. Don't believe me? Let me share with this with you guys too. Let me go to my bookmarks because I didn't get to put this in. Because this is important. A lot of people don't realize this. And shout out to Roger Meadows, because he shared this with me. And this is something that a lot of people really need to see. And I share this all the time, but I just want to make sure that, this solidifies it for everybody. So this is from the Out of Reach, and it shows how much you need to make in order to live in the state of Florida. So you need, in order to afford a 2-bedroom, you need to make $30.59 per hour in Florida, right? Our current minimum wage in the state of Florida is $11 an hour. I think it's supposed to go up in 2024 to $12 an hour, right? And so in order to afford a 2-bedroom, you have to work 111 hours a week at minimum wage in order to afford a 2-bedroom. To afford a 1-bedroom, you have to work 92 hours a week. Can anybody live? And we're in Orange County. Some of the more expensive counties are Monroe County, Miami Beach, Kendall, West Palm Beach, Boca Raton, Fort Lauderdale, and Naples, Immokalee, and Marcos Island. So, and then the average 2-bedroom, this is just average, is $1,591 a month, and the 1-bedroom is $1,312, right? So for a lot of us, it just doesn't work. And the fact is that you have these hotel workers that are constantly working multiple jobs a lot of the times in order to survive, and they can't survive. And so this is why also paying attention to local politics is also so important. So it says Fasella is right that these subsidies are corporate welfare. Hotel taxes are used primarily in one way in Central Florida to boost revenues for the hospitality industry, mainly through constant expansions of the convention center and subsidies for tourism marketing at Visit Orlando. Something I actually want to also say here as well in regards to Orlando. If you go to any public high school, and I can say this with confidence because I've seen this, that there's literally hospitality classes to get into the hotel industry in our high schools. How do I know? Because they had it in my high schools. When I went to Oak Ridge High School for my first 2 years, there was a hospitality class in Oak Ridge High School that serves my community. I have a relative that's a teenager that's literally in the hospitality class. So they set people up to get into the hospitality industry from high school. You have hospitality classes in high school right now in Central Florida. Now, they may have it in other states too, but it's prominent here in Central Florida. So, but what good is it if you can't make enough to survive? The hospitality industry has a chokehold within Central Florida. All right, moving on. So it says Florida is the only state that restricts the use of hotel taxes to the promotion and development of an industry, as opposed to also addressing the impacts of the industry. That's from Eric Gray. It says in other places like Las Vegas, Atlanta, and Phoenix, leaders use hotel taxes to pay for everything from transit and housing to roads and parks to help ease the tax burden for local residents. Here, local leaders ask citizens to raise their own taxes. I will give you an example. Here in Orlando, our transit system is called Lynx, right? It's the Lynx bus system. And so our transit system is tailored more towards the tourists instead of the residents. Why do I say this? Back in the day, there once was a young man named JB. And this young man used to have to work in restaurants in areas like Universal City Walk, which is the more touristy part of Universal Orlando. I used to work in a restaurant called NBA City, right? And so I was a line cook there, and being a line cook, you had to stay until the restaurant closed if you were closing. And especially during the busy season, which would be seasons in like July, August, September, we would stay open until 11 p.m., 12 p.m. sometimes, especially if it was like a game night, things like that. So being at the place like NBA City, sometimes we would get very prominent basketball players or former basketball players come in, and they would be treated like a VIP. Even if they came at closing times, it's like whatever they want, you have to make for them. So we would stay over. Well, if you're still cooking because you were slammed in a restaurant by like 12 o'clock p.m. and you still have a rail of tickets, Well, you're not going to be able to start cleaning up and getting out till about maybe 1 to 1:30. But by the time you get to the bus stop, that bus stops running, right? So then if the bus, the longest route, the most popular route stops running around 1:30, you're screwed. And this is pre-Uber, pre-Lyft. This is before all that. So you would have to take a cab. But what if you didn't have enough money for cabs? So there would be times where I would literally have to take 3 hours just to walk home after working a 12-hour shift. I'll have to take 3 hours just to walk home at 2 o'clock in the morning. So by the time I get home, it'll be close to 5 a.m. from working after working a 12-hour shift and then having to walk 3 hours home because the bus stops running, because they don't tailor the system, the transit system, for us workers and us residents. So that's how it works here in the United States, here in Central Florida, in Orange County. And so that's just one facet of what we go through. So it talks about the county commissioners who voted against it. It says Nicole Wilson and Emily Bonilla. And then the people who did vote for this obscene amount of money to go towards, to uplift the hotel lobby is, of course, Jerry Demings, Maribel Gomez Cordero, Christine Moore, Michael Scott, and Myra Uribe. And so this just goes to show this is very important to focus on locally what they're doing, because this has a direct effect on your life. So it says the vast majority of the money, including tens of millions expected to go to Visit Orlando again, will be spent ensuring Central Florida remains at the bottom of the barrel economy. It says, sure, some jobs related to conventions and hospitality pay decent wages. Event and meeting managers, for instance, can make $50,000 or $60,000 a year. But according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we have about 1,300 event planning jobs compared to 22,770 ride and attraction attendants. The latter number represents the population larger than the city of Maitland that can't afford to live in Maitland because their median wage is $13.79 an hour, meaning half make less than that. It says we have tens of thousands of jobs in food prep that makes $13.93 an hour, housekeeping $13.89 an hour, and hotel desk clerks making $14.68 an hour. None of those professions pay enough to make ends meet, even if you double them for a 2-income home. Remember what I said, right? You need to make at least $31 an hour to survive. And even if you double their income, they still wouldn't be able to make enough. This is why also paying attention to local politics is important. And I'm saying that because a lot of times we focus so much on the national level, but local is also deeply important, because they're wasting money on these hotels. The money will come to these hotels. They are fine. What about the workers? That's what's important. And so, look, I'm going to share this article with you guys. If you're in Central Florida, in Orlando, you guys, share this with your family, share this with your friends, because this is also very important. Local, all politics is local, but if you need to focus on the local level as well, because a lot of people are suffering, especially here in Central Florida. All right. So I'm sharing that in the chat. There's also some other articles, but due to the sake of time, I have to get to that a little bit later. But yes, so Go into the chat real quick. Oh, Indy left. Good to see you, Indy. What's up? What's up? Desert Mantis says looks almost as nice as Dubai. Yeah. Yeah, Orlando's very beautiful in many ways. Yeah. Yeah, like 3 miles to walk. Yeah. Yeah, it is massive. Let me see. Indy Left says Rosen pays for all the kids in Orlando to go to preschool, I hear. Yeah, there are some things that Harrison Rosen did that some people praise about, but my point is Rosen shouldn't be on the hands of Rosen, right? It should be on the county to do that. It should be on the local government to do that, especially in places like Tangelo Park, which is basically right in that neighborhood. Tangelo Park is a predominantly Black neighborhood that is in that area. And Tangelo Park should not have to go through all that. In fact, Tangelo Park should be supported by the county instead. And it should be built up, especially as far as the living conditions. Tangelo Park is basically the hood right next to the tourist industry. But yes, Harrison Rosen has been praised for things like that. Yeah, Rosen hotels are ridiculous. Wadi says there may be various reasons for him to... Oh, you guys are talking about West. Okay. We'll get into that in a minute. Yes, Quantum Alchemist is in-your-face feudalism 2.0. Yeah. Jacqueline Hemming says working that many hours, that's not living, that's existing miserably. These ghouls are trying to make all of our lives as bleak as possible. Yes. This is why we're doing the actions in Orlando as far as mutual aid, because we're trying to help out our fellow neighbors. Also, if you guys want to participate in our meet and greet, we're going to be doing a meet and greet this Saturday at the Drunken Monkey Coffee Bar. That's at 444 North Mumby Avenue. We're going to be going there at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be meeting, talking about different actions that we can do on the ground here in Orlando. If you guys would like to come meet me, the rest of the members of the RBN Orlando chapter, then please make sure to do that. I'll also put in the community tab here on my YouTube channel, I'll also be including another update about that so that you guys are kept abreast of what's going on. So thank you so very much. But yes, we got to do more mutual aid too. Omar Rona says, damn, rich people cause all these problems because they don't have enough yachts yet. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay. So now we're going to go into our next story. Baby, please make sure to like the stream. The speaker silenced. Silence. Be quiet. There ain't no speaker no more. Boy, this is going to be... Baby, this is... Oh, my Lord. This is going to be... Oh, geez Louise. McCarthy was kicked out of the chair. He got booted, baby. Quiet! Shh! Hush your mouth. Silence when I spit it out. In your face. Open your mouth. Give you a taste. Holla! Wait. This is hilarious. So apparently, okay, Kevin McCarthy was in the find out phase of fuck around. I ain't kidding. Yo, this is hilarious. I'm gonna share you what happened with Kevin McCarthy. Because everybody was talking about this on Tuesday. I didn't get to because this happened around the time where I went live. Look. This is what happened with Kevin
As
McCarthy.
you can see, the more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out. As you can see, the more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out. As you can see, the more you fuck around.
Oh, gosh, he fucked around and found out. Look, Matt Gaetz said, hold my beer. And guess what? Matt Gaetz said, I see you. Look, this is what happened to the former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, on Tuesday. It was confirmed sometime around when I went live, so that's one of the reasons why I didn't cover it. Baby, the House was on fire on Tuesday. And Republicans joined some Republicans, they joined the Democrats in ousting Speaker McCarthy. Let me share this. Oh Lord. All right, so let's see. I'm gonna share this with y'all on C-SPAN. All right.
The previous question is ordered on the resolution. The question is on adoption of the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The noes have it. The resolution is, gentlemen from Florida.
I'd request the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant the table, the office. On this vote, the yeas are 216. The nays are 210. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
Woo! Boy, oh boy. I am telling you, this was fire news that happened. Everybody was like, what? They did it. They actually, look, I'm telling you. All right, so this is what happened. So, of course, as we spoke about on this channel about a week ago, I talked about how Matt Gaetz is threatening Kevin McCarthy with taking him out of speakership. One of the things that happened was during the deal, they went 15 rounds. And one of the concessions that Speaker McCarthy agreed to was a process where instead of having multiple members of Congress basically move for a motion for the Speaker to vacate the chair, I think it was like 5 had to say that they vote basically almost like a no confidence. And then you had to have at least 5 of them in order for the Speaker to be put up to be ousted from his speakership. Instead, they reduced it down to 1 person, right? Matt Gaetz knew what the fuck he was doing. And guess what? Speaker McCarthy agreed to it. He didn't do what the Freedom Caucus wanted. Matt Gaetz said, I bet I move for a motion for Speaker McCarthy to vacate the chair. They held the vote. And guess what? 216 for him to vacate to 210 saying no, they don't want him to vacate. So guess what? The Democrats, they went along with him vacating the seat. And that's what they did. And 8 Republicans joined. And now Speaker McCarthy is Speaker no more. They said, hush. Speaker McCarthy went like Keith Sweat. I'm not gonna be here for long. Yo, this is hilarious. Now, I just want to get some perspective from some people who actually talked about this. Now, there was some remarks that were from Brianna Joy Gray that I would like to get her perspective, because let's be real, Brianna Joy Gray, she was talking her shit yesterday or the other day, and rightly so. But let's get her perspective really quick. So let me enlarge this, and let's go.
In the country's history, the House of Representatives voted yesterday to vacate the speakership, ending Kevin McCarthy's tenure just short of the 270-day mark. In the end, the vote came out 216 to 210, with 208 Democrats joining the 8 rebel Republicans breaking rank. McCarthy spoke from outside the House floor shortly after the vote yesterday. Let's take a look.
My goals have not changed. My ability to fight is just in a different form. You need 218. Unfortunately, 4% of our conference can join all the Democrats and dictate who can be the Republican speaker. Ability to fight is just in a different form.
A quiet form. You listening to the quiet form on Star 94.5. Sorry.
You need 218. Unfortunately, 4% of our conference can join all the Democrats and dictate who can be the Republican speaker in this House. I don't think that rule is good for the institution, but apparently I'm the only one. I believe I can continue to fight, maybe in a different manner. I will not run for speaker again. I'll have the conference pick somebody else.
And joining the Democrats, they did. Freedom Caucus member Matthew Gaetz faced boos from all sides of the aisle when he called out the speaker for kowtowing to private interests.
When it comes to how those raise money, I take no lecture on asking patriotic Americans to weigh in and contribute to this fight from those who would grovel and bend knee for the lobbyists and special interests who own our leadership, who have, boo all you want, who have hollowed out this town and have borrowed against the future of our future generations. I'll be happy to fund my political operation through the work of hardworking Americans, $10 and $20 and $30 at a time. And you all keep showing up at the lobbyist fundraisers and see how that goes for you. I reserve.
So the Biden administration weighed in on the ousting yesterday in a statement reading, quote, President Biden has demonstrated that he is always eager to work with both parties in Congress in good faith on behalf of the American people, because the urgent challenges facing our nation will not wait. He hopes the House will quickly select a speaker.
Okay, so I want to just characterize how this is sort of being covered, and then I want to get your read on it.
Yeah.
I think broadly speaking, Republicans, many Republicans, establishment Republicans, not the Freedom Caucus Republicans that Matt Gaetz is a part of, but establishment Republicans are saying this is a bunch of rebels who joined forces with Democrats in a way that is undermining to them and demonstrates their lack of solidarity with the broader Republican core interests to oust a speaker who was doing his job. And they're trying to tie this to the Democrats. The Democrats are saying this has nothing to do with us. Our job is not to step in and save an unpopular conservative speaker. Republican leader, the Republican majority is supposed to nominate the speaker. Of course, we're going to nominate our own speaker, Hakeem Jeffries, or whoever we want on the left-hand side of the aisle. This is your guys' problem. Don't stick it to us. The piece of this that I think is getting left out of the discourse is that there is a portion of the left that is very excited to see this power demonstrated, because this is exactly the kind of force the vote moment that people were advocating for a handful of squad members to do to Nancy Pelosi back in 2021. And at that time, many gatekeepers on the left insisted that they could not do this very maneuver that we've now seen demonstrated for the first time in history. And it seems to be a reflection of the real power a minority caucus can have in Congress to effectuate its ends, even if the progressive ends and the ends of Matt Gaetz are different. So I want your take.
Okay, so Bree, you can get my take, because let's be real. we were right. We talked about forced to vote. And we talked about how if you put the pressure on the speaker at the time, who was Nancy Pelosi, and say, we will not vote for you until you give us concessions. There's some people that were like, well, no, because then if you do that, then Kevin McCarthy becomes speaker and you can't do that. And what happened? It went through 15 rounds. Did Hakeem Jeffries suddenly become speaker just because the Freedom Caucus kept saying no until McCarthy decided to concede to what they wanted? No, it kept on going. The rounds kept on going. It didn't suddenly go to somebody like Hakeem Jeffries. No, it kept going. They kept going round after round, voting again and again and again. And you don't think that the Democrats couldn't have done it? You don't think that the Progressive Caucus couldn't have done this? They could have done this exact same thing. And if Nancy Pelosi didn't capitulate to the demands of the progressives, they had enough to do this. All it took was 8 members of the Freedom Caucus to side with the Democrats, and then McCarthy was out. You don't think that it would have just took a small number of Republicans to join the Democrats, especially the progressives, to oust somebody like Pelosi? The Republican Party would have massively done it. And then you just could have had just a few of the progressives that joined in and set the number over. You know, the majority of the Democratic caucus would have been like, no, we don't want to oust Pelosi. But all the Republicans would have been like, oh, yeah, we want to get rid of that woman. And then the progressives, which is larger than the Freedom Caucus, could have been like, yeah, we're joining. We don't want her. Vacate the chair. And even with 5 members to say we file a motion to vacate the chair, they could have had 5 members of the Progressive Caucus to go, yeah, we want to file a motion for her to vacate the chair. And then they could have gotten what they wanted. And they could have put somebody else up that they think that would actually do better as speaker. By the way, any American citizen can become Speaker of the House. That's actually a fact. So when people talk about, oh, well, this doesn't work, it just did. And this is why people like Brianna Joy Gray was all over Twitter basically saying, I told you so. And rightfully so, because a lot of us did. We did tell people so. But the thing is, here's the point. They did not want some of the people who I like to call the legacy corporate left. They did not want anybody to put pressure on the Democratic leadership, because then that would have meant that we actually got concessions what we want. And unfortunately, some of these people in the corporate left, they just want to use the Republicans as a boogeyman so that they can get you to donate to their Patreons. It's true. Because if the Democrats actually start working for us, then what? Fact, the force to vote actually works. And we now have precedents in history that proves what we on the left have been saying. These corporate leftists and independent media have been trying to tell us that we were wrong, but now history has proved them wrong. So, yeah. Let me share this as well. because she's been making the rounds. Breonna Joy Gray said, forced to vote supporters were right. Sam was wrong. Sam Cedars is one of the top people who are actually talking about how he thinks this is wrong. Why won't he admit it? He tore apart the left over his personal feud with another podcaster, namely people like Jimmy Dore. Why not take this moment to simply apologize and reconstitute the left? Because he's not interested in that. That's basically what it is. He's not interested in that. And that's the sad part. Because the thing is that being humble would mean that you put your ego to the side and say, well, you know what? You guys were right. Let's continue to fight with it, together so that we can actually create a more egalitarian society in the right ways. But no, they don't want to do that. So let me share this as well. This is an article. It says the 5 takeaways from the ouster of Kevin McCarthy as Speaker. It says Kevin McCarthy made ignominious history Tuesday when he became the first Speaker to ever be ousted by a vote of the House. 8 Republicans, led by longtime McCarthy foe, Representative Matt Gaetz, voted with Democrats to deliver a 216 to 210 margin in favor of ejecting the Speaker from office. McCarthy defended his record and took shots at the tormentors during the Tuesday evening press conference. By then, he had also made known to the consternation of his allies that he would not seek to retake the gavel. It has been a series of dramatic days, and there is more turbulence to come. So it says the government shutdown is more likely and Ukraine aid more imperiled. That's one of the positive things is less aid to Ukraine, which means less aid to continue this war. But make no mistake about this. As far as the Ukraine war is concerned, a lot of these Republicans that talk about they're against the Ukraine war, they're only against the Ukraine war because Democrats are for it. That's the only reason why they're against it. And switch Russia for China and watch these Republicans become the neocons that they already are. They show their true colors as neocons. So they may talk about, oh man, we want peace in Ukraine. Yeah, y'all want peace in Ukraine, but y'all don't want peace with China. So let's be real. They actually aren't peace people. They're not advocates for peace. They just don't want a European nation to be in a war right now. But that's one thing. So I want to make sure I make that abundantly clear. They're not actually people who advocate for peace. They're the ones who continuously vote for the military budget. Says a big win for Gaetz. Now, here's the thing. Gaetz is now considered a hero among the far right. And some people on the left are seeing him as an example of what could be done if somebody actually had the guts to be able to stand up to Democratic leadership, but they don't. All right? Here's my thing, though. You guys who are progressives got outdone by Matt Gaetz? Ooh. How do you let Matt Gaetz outdo you? How do you do that? Maxwell Frost, how do you allow Matt Gaetz to outdo you when it comes to standing up to the leadership in your party? How do you? What? Jamal Bowman, you're gonna let him show you up like that? Ilhan Omar, I thought you were Miss Vocal. Rashida Tlaib, you were vocal. And yet, you let Matt Gaetz outdo you? Oh, this doesn't look good for you. If anything, you guys are now just seen as lapdogs for then Pelosi, now Jeffries. That's what you look like. Because I don't see Matt Gaetz other than just a variation of Florida man, just like people like Ron DeSantis. Except for he looks like he got his eyebrows threaded. That's it. So, what? Y'all crazy. I wouldn't have let Matt Gaetz outdo me like that. No. It's crazy. The Democrats got rid of the devil they know. Yeah, but they could have gotten a lot more headway if they actually forced to vote themselves. But they didn't want to because they want to capitulate to the leadership. So the Republicans caused themselves damage, but how much? Now, this is something that is to be expected. Corporate Republicans, actually in my eyes, they're all corporate, but corporate Republicans are now mad at Matt Gaetz. They're angry. They're like, how dare you? You're ruining things for us. And it's like, and this would have been the same thing that happened on the Democratic side. You would have had corporate Democrats look at the progressives and go, you ruin things. And it's like, yeah, but good. Look, here's the thing. I wanted something like this to happen, but I wanted the progressives to do this. I didn't want this to happen on the Republican side. We were trying to talk the Democrats into doing this. But did they want to? No. Because they wanted to keep Mama Bear in place. They kept Mama Bear in place, and now they look like a bunch of fools. Dear God. How embarrassing. Like, I'd be embarrassed to be part of the Progressive Caucus. Anger burns red hot on Capitol Hill. It says the atmosphere of American politics has been growing venomous for years, but it's still notable just how much anger is coursing around Capitol Hill right now. Republicans loyal to McCarthy are incandescent about the actions of Gaetz and his band, not least because they seal GOP votes backed by Democrats, trumping the opinions of more than 200 members in their camp. Several different streams are woven into Democratic anger at Republicans. I believe that the GOP has become merely a vehicle for Trumpism that is uninterested in governance and that is enthralled to its most partisan members. So that's another point. And yeah, so that happened. Speaker McCarthy is out. They have to nominate a new speaker. They're going to be voting for that, I guess, in a short period of time. So yeah, that's basically just an update of what's happened. So it actually finally happened. So did you guys like the stream? Go ahead and give a like. And outside of that, I will be going to the chat really quick. And then we will move on to our explosive story in a second. So let me make sure to do this. I can't believe I didn't do that. Okay. I have tips on Rockfin as well. So we're going to go to that too. I can't wait till they get to this final story. This final story is going to be fire. Okay. All right. So thanks on Rockfin to all the people. Denver Attaway, thank you so very much. He said, can you hear that freedom ring? Oh, man. Thank you. David Attaway said the Ukraine war was directed by NATO and the USA has resulted in 1, strengthen and embolden Russia, 2, weaken demilitarize NATO, and 3, diplomatically isolate USA, 4, final push to kill the dollar. Yeah. Thank you so very much for that, David Attaway. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin. Roger, you said it's a minimum wage law that permanently set minimum wage above either cost of living, inflation, and local rent rates, whichever is higher, while offering tax subsidies to small and medium-sized businesses to cover 85% to 100% of labor costs so that they don't feel the impact. Also, just don't focus on rent is too damn high for tenants of housing units, but also for small business tenants too. Yes, that's another variable that a lot of people don't talk about, is that small businesses also have to pay rents, especially in a lot of these different places here in the city and in the county. So if you are helping them out with their rents, then you also benefit small businesses too. That's also another variable. Thank you so very much for that, Roger. Shout out to Rory O'Neill. Happy Thursday, JB. Thank you so much. Happy Thursday to you as well, Rory. All right, let's go to the Chizat. He said, Roger Meadows, thank you for the super chat. He says, transition them small businesses to worker co-ops. Agreed. Jacqueline Hemming says, I don't get it. Doesn't Matt Gaetz also kowtow to private interests? Who is he gaslighting? Here's the thing I want to say, and I think this is the point. I think he does. It's just he just like is manipulative in that way. So Matt Gaetz doesn't, in my view, really care about actual voters on the ground and being a grassroots person, politician. It's more about, looking like he is, because ultimately Cappy's going to cap, right? Basically meaning he believes in capitalism. He believes in big business and industry. So therefore he's going to get money from them. But at the same time, he's got to make it look like, well, I don't appeal to the special interests, when in fact you do. If Donald Trump also appeals to the special interests of big business, right? He gets money from them. Ron DeSantis also gets money from big business and interests. So these MAGA Republicans are not really that much different from the average, regular, standard issue Republicans. It's just one rhetorically says that they're against these big billionaires, when in reality they actually are cool with it. Because look, they sit behind Donald Trump, who is a billionaire. Like, the fuck? So that's the thing. So yeah, he's being super manipulative in his rhetoric, and I agree, Jacqueline. I don't trust this Florida man, as far as I can throw him. Let's be real. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much for the super sticker. Appreciate it so very much. Now, whoever says Jacqueline, from what I understand, Gaetz is one of the least two Republicans who actually don't take corporate money. Marjorie Taylor Greene's another one. I recently found this out and I was surprised. Oh, they don't? All right. Well, okay. Still horrible policies, but yeah. I mean, that's one thing. Colin says NPR is pushing the injustice and peril narrative over not funding Ukraine. Nuts. Of course they are. Jeez Louise, these people. I'm telling you. Sunday night Jimmy doing being Orlando. Oh, okay. Thanks for letting me know. Now, let's go to our final story. Look, I'm going to tell y'all right now. Baby. I was on the phone with Sabby Sabs, and Sabby will tell you, I was on the phone. And we were just talking. We were just chopping it up. And she's like, oh, shit. And I'm like, hold up. Let me reenact. Oh, shit, JB. What? She's like, Dr. West is running independent. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? The hell is going on? So this is what we talk about, the independent. Baby, I was like, okay, so let's get into this. Let me share this. This is crazy. Everybody's talking about this. So there was a status by Dr. Cornel West recently, earlier today, and we got to talk about it because I was in shock. I had no plans about talking about this, so this is a whole brand new story. I had to fix my I had to fix this.
I believe there's two parties.
I had to fix this just so that we can talk. All right, so let's hear what you got to say.
We need you to be part and parcel of wrestling with this corporate duopoly, this two-party system that impedes, it gets in the way of the unleashing of the kind of policies of abolishing poverty and homelessness, of dealing with working wages, cutting back on militarism, and most importantly, trying to ensure that the best of who we are as a people can be more manifest, can be more concrete, because the crisis is real and these catastrophes are bombarding us. Please come join us.
So here's what he says. He said, people are hungry for change. They want good policies over partisan politics. We need to break the grip of the duopoly and give power to the people. I'm running as an independent candidate for president of the United States to end the iron grip of the ruling class and ensure true democracy. I say, what? So I was thinking to myself, I'm like, is this good or bad? But it depends on who you talk to. So as far as Dr. Cornel West and him leaving the Green Party, I think some Green Party people are not very happy right now because they were counting on Dr. West as being the eventual nominee. Now, let's remind people that the Green Party has primaries. And so Dr. Cornel West was not the nominee of the Green Party yet. He was running in the Green Party, but you would have to win the Green Party primary to be the Green Party nominee. But a lot of people in their mind had put him as the de facto nominee already. But now, because he was never nominated by the Greens, he was never voted in a Green primary, he just left, and the opening's still there for any nominees who want to run in the Green Party, but he won't be part of the Greens. So this is very interesting developments. So one of the things that I wanted to also bring out was, I was talking about this with Savvy. There is virtually no primary in the Democratic Party. There's no debates happening in the Democratic Party. They switched the order of the primary states, the early primary states, to favor people like Joe Biden. So there's virtually no primary going on in the Democratic Party. So when you have people like RFK Jr. that just recently left the Democrats to run independent, now if you can say this with confidence that RFK Jr. is now in the general election. So RFK Jr. is running against Biden and Trump and West because he's already in the general. If you're running independent, you don't have to go around in primaries, meaning you're going straight to the general. West is now independent, which means he doesn't have to engage in a primary. And now he's automatically going to be in the general. Anybody hear from Marianne Williamson lately? You see, because she's still running in the Democratic non-existent primary, she's muffled. So if she can't win the primary, then what? She's not going to win the primary. And if she keeps running in there, then it's not really advantageous for her at all to stay. But for some reason, she wants to keep staying there. And not many people are paying her much attention because she's not really the subject of much conversation anymore. So Marianne's pretty much done. Unless she leaves the Democratic Party and runs independent, she's done. There's nothing there. And I've said this before, and I'll say this again. Marianne Williamson is going to drop out before Christmas, and then she's going to continue her book tour. She can't even make it to Super Tuesday. I'm going to be real with you. She can't. Unless she drops out of the Democratic Party and goes independent herself. No. Now, I observed that there was a difference in Dr. Cornel West's campaign website. So, I find this to be very interesting. So, let me just go to the main website. So, this is what it looks like now. He says justice is what love looks like in public. So he talks about that. But if you go to his platform, this is where the meat and potatoes are. And this is what I said. I was shocked at how more comprehensive it actually is. And I'm going to be real with y'all. If you look at this platform, it shows that Dr. Cornel West was actually listening to a lot of us. He was listening. And a lot of people may have discounted him, but his ears were open. I find this very interesting because a lot of times people who are in politics don't really listen, especially people in the Democratic Republican parties, but he did. Said policy pillars for a movement rooted in truth, justice, and love. Economic justice. First off, abolish poverty. Of course, we know that about him. Abolish homelessness. Yes, I believe that housing is a human right. And yes, that he put that there. But here's some things that I was just like, what? Shout out to Roger Meadows. Establish a federal public banking institution to fund public infrastructure and green reconstruction. I've had members of public banking, the National Public Banking Infrastructure Coalition, on before with Alfec on Maturity. I've had Nelson Betancourt on, who wanted to institute a county-wide public banking here in Orange County. And I would like to get their thoughts on this. They probably are clapping for this one right here, but this would be a boom to especially working people, especially in regards to infrastructure. So that's a positive that we didn't see. Establish a federal universal basic income commission. Wealth tax on all billionaire holdings and transactions. Now, here's my thing. I would tax the crap out of billionaires to take them out of billionaire status. Of course, that's one small critique that I would make as far as this, language is concerned, but that's, a little bit smaller. And all tax loopholes for the oligarchy. Now, here's an interesting part. National $27 an hour minimum wage with special considerations for special geographies where $27 an hour would not be family sustaining wage. So this is interesting. So if you're in an area like California, Hawaii, New York, Florida, Colorado, Illinois, places like that, then of course it would be above $27 an hour. But if you're in places like Mississippi, Kentucky, Wyoming, South Carolina, West Virginia, places like that, well, yeah, $27 an hour is actually sufficient, right? Mandatory minimum of 6 months of paid parental leave. We don't have paid parental leave by law. So this would actually be great for parents. ensuring family sustaining and living wages for all disability benefits. This affects me personally. Those of us like myself who actually get disability, we don't get enough to actually live. I'm literally struggling right now. This is why I have a GoFundMe. This is why I also say, say if you guys want to tip anything through PayPal in my channel, you guys can do that, because I'm literally struggling as we speak. So as somebody who's on a fixed income that gets disability, this helps me deeply. So that's another thing, right? Don't want to spend too much on this, but on this part. But these are some comprehensive things: worker justice, worker bill of rights, greater protection for workers who attempt to unionize. This is interesting: 33% minimum worker representation for all boards of directors, right? Establish a federal commission to institute a 4-day work week. Review all U.S. trade agreements and cancel any provisions that exploit workers domestically and internationally. One of the things that I would critique him on is pushing to establish more worker co-ops nationally and worker-owned and operated businesses. So, because I don't see that here. That's one thing I don't see unless I missed it. So I would like to see more of that. Of course, Green New Deal to a global reconstruction initiative. Nationalize the fossil fuel industry. I say nationalize it to get rid of it. And that's one of the things that I actually am in favor of, so that we can lessen it and get rid of it to have more green technology. Climate reparations and can contribute fair share to global loss and damage fund. That's interesting. End water privatization. I actually talked about this as well on this channel, about how they're trying to privatize water. They actually recommended to Joe Biden to approve water privatization nationwide. He's saying absolutely not. So these are some other things. And canceling the Willow Project, Mountain Valley Pipeline, and other harmful, unnecessary projects harming people and the planet. Health justice. Go beyond Medicare for all towards true health justice. What does he mean by beyond? I would, if I were him, I would put establish a national health system in the United States, and then I would expand on that. That is basically what I would do. Habeas corpus healthcare, free healthcare for all and any residents in the United States. Codify abortion rights. Remove trans. Okay, so this is also an important part. Remove transgender exclusions, limitations from healthcare policies. This is also deeply important, right? Nationalize the healthcare. Oh, here you go. Oops, sorry, I missed that part. Nationalize the healthcare industry, including pharmaceutical industry. So this is huge, because here's the issue a lot of people don't talk about. Because yes, you can have a single-payer healthcare system, but the hospitals, big pharma, medical device manufacturers, etc., are going to charge our government obscene amounts of money, even still. But if it's nationalized, then guess what? That saves money. So then if it is ran by the people, the hospitals, the clinics, the gyms, if you run the nursing homes, all these things by the people, then guess what? And if it's not for profit, then that's a lot of money that can be saved, as well as, instead of the focus being on profit, the focus is on care. and you save money with preventative care instead of trying to kick it back to the private sector for them to make profit. Because if I nationalize the industry, I want to keep people out of the hospital as much as possible. How do you keep people out of the hospital system? You keep them as healthy as possible, which means you focus on preventative care. You focus on, and if I had it my way, I would try to popularize and modernize having neighborhood dietitians, having neighborhood trainers, physical fitness trainers. Imagine that. I honestly would also include gyms in the national healthcare system, meaning nobody should have to pay for a gym membership in the country. Everybody can go and just make sure you register in the gym. And if you want to, they have classes so that you can learn how to work out properly to take care of yourself. There will be dietitian offices throughout the United States to learn how to eat and have nutrition properly. I think that is something that we should have. Because people focus so much on doctors, but how many of us focus on dietitians and trainers to help keep us healthy? Right? I think a national healthcare system would do us a world of good in this country. I think it's absolutely necessary. So in medical apartheid, increased rights for people with disabilities, ending the war on drugs, that's important. This is important. Establish and I have to be careful what I say, a pandemic commission to deliver justice for populations disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. Convene a federal panel of scientists and experts to study the safety and utilization of jabs for infectious diseases. That's important. Racial justice, of course, reparations. He's for reparations, right? Reestablished the 1965 Voting Rights Act. Land back. He talks about land back for those of us who are indigenous. And this is something a lot of people aren't talking about. Codify the Justice for Black Farmers Act for immediate execution, because our Black farmers are literally being discriminated against. And then the epidemic, you see, use federal forces to investigate and end the epidemic of missing and murdered indigenous women. Transformative justice. Protect free speech. Shut down Cop City. End mass incarceration in prison industrial complex. Confiscate all military equipment from civilian police forces. End and prohibit all police training programs by military forces, including but not limited to the Israeli Defense Forces. Abolish the use of solitary confinement. Redistribute police funding to unarmed community-led forces. Basically, Cornel West is saying defund the police. He said it without actually saying it. And I don't care if he says it or not, but if he's actually trying to implement defunding the police, well, shit, I'm all for it. Right? Okay. Cool. I like it. Education. Right? Center public schools, reduce the need for charter schools. I would say outlaw charter schools, but some people are going to have a problem with that, but whatever. I don't give a fuck. This is something I found interesting. Minimum wage of $80,000 a year for all U.S. public school teachers K through 12. Yo! That's wild in a good way. $80,000 a year for public school? Of course! Of course. Take the issue of money off the table for teachers. Look, you got these people who spend our kids spend a huge chunk of time with these people. Why aren't we paying them top dollar? Because they're spending their time with our kids. Why aren't we spending top dollar on them? Like, are you kidding me right now? We should. They're literally teaching the future. Oh my gosh. Oh, this is also a really good one. Dismantle the school-to-prison pipeline by removing police and so-called school resource officers from public schools. Any of you who went to school in poor neighborhoods or in the hood, you have police officers all up and through your schools all the time. They're always in school. I literally had a school resource officer teach me a class in middle school. That is completely unnecessary. We don't need them in our schools. So I'm actually for that. Cancel all student loan debt. Presidential powers, you actually can do that. Codify the use of race, ethnicity, and class for admissions. Abolish state laws that limit or remove full and accurate study of U.S. history. Increase federal funding for HBCUs and tribal colleges and universities. LGBTQIA plus justice. All right. So, gender affirming standards of care for trans people in public life and institutions. I agree. And unwarranted, unnecessary, and dangerous assaults on transgender people. Some people do not like this. Even, unfortunately, some people who consider themselves to be on the left. But let's be real. Most transgender people are workers too. So we need to protect those workers as well. And I'm standing 10 toes down with my full chest on that. We got to protect our trans workers too. And if you don't like it, well, I guess you're against some workers. I'm saying that with my full chest right now. Trans workers matter too. I don't care if I lose subscribers over that. Gun violence. End the gun violence epidemic. National Gun Registry database for all civilians, similar to the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act database for hazardous materials. Drastically limit the number of sales at gun shows. National red flag law that expedites the process of gun confiscation. Establish some requirements for driver's licenses, the gun ownership. Now, here's my thing. As far as guns are concerned, I also think that we should be strict with guns regarding police. Now, he wants to defund the police as well, which I think is a good thing. But we also should, in that defunding, is in the process of that defunding is curbing the use of guns, period, by police. Because they're killing us more than actually protecting us. So if you can't use that tool properly, then you shouldn't have it at all. Just saying. So yeah, because they're the ones who are killing us. So that's something I will actually have a discussion with him on. I'm trying to get Dr. Cornel West on to talk about these things, but baby steps. Immigration justice. All right. Cut the red tape that delays legal pathways to citizenship and permanent residence. And crimes against humanity for migrants and their families. No separation of families. No children in cages. Accountability for U.S. role in exacerbating the migrant crisis. This right here is something that a lot of people don't talk about, because one of the reasons why a lot of people are fleeing their countries is because of U.S. foreign policy in places like Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, because they literally have to leave because the United States is tearing apart and destabilizing these countries in the first place. So people literally have to leave because they're fleeing hardship, because the United States is literally one of the major causes of it. If you stop the hardship and if you help and allow these countries to build themselves back up, then that slows the amount of people needing to cross the southern border. Because you're not going to leave a place if you got it good. But a lot of people don't want to talk about it. You know? All right. Abolish ICE and demilitarize the southern border. Enforce international and national laws that allow for asylum seekers to enter the country without delay or prejudice. Global justice. Dismantle the U.S. empire. Okay, so here's one of my slight critiques. Slash the bloated U.S. military budget. So one of my minor critiques is I would tell Dr. West, put a number with it, right? Claudia de la Cruz says, slash the military budget by 90%. If Dr. Cornel West says something similar to this, I think it'd be a stronger message. I think that saying just slash the budget is like, yes, by how much? Because I can slash a piece of paper, but it can be just a little corner, right? How much do you want to slash? I think that's something that needs to be put in, because if you're going to talk about slashing the military budget, give us a number. Now, if you say 90%, I'm going to say good, right? 90 to 95%, all right, cool. Because we literally spend way too much money on the military, and most of that money doesn't even go to our troops. Most of the money goes to Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, Honeywell, Lockheed Martin. That's who the money goes to. Fuck those companies. Fuck them all. No. And anybody that is working class that is in those companies, they can be retrained. Either that or nationalize Lockheed Martin, nationalize Honeywell, nationalize all those companies, and then retrain and lay off all the people that work for those companies and retrain them to work in other industries. Give them a severance package, a hefty severance package, and retrain them. And then have everything that was built by the military industrial complex, have everything done in-house. Basically, the U.S. military builds its own munitions, builds its own systems, and save all that money. Renationalize the military industrial complex so that it's no longer a for-profit industry. And if it's no longer for-profit, that means that there's no need to have more war. Do everything in-house. No more military contractors. We all do everything in-house. Military feeds themselves. You want Humvees built? All right. Then have military mechanics that are hired by the United States government, and then hire the military mechanics to work on our vehicles. Okay. See what I mean? That's another way you can slash the military budget. And then on top of it, pay our troops more and end the military bases around the world, because you can save a shit ton of money by closing these military bases. We don't need them at all. There's what, 10 military bases combined between Russia and China? 10 at the very most. It's probably less than that. And these are major superpowers. We don't need all these military bases. Over 800? Give me a break. All right, so let me see. Expeditious and responsible closure of global U.S. military bases like AFRICOM, etc. Disband NATO. NATO is a terrorist organization. We don't need him. Cease military funding to the state of Israel. Cease all war funding and weapons to Ukraine and invest in peacemaking. End Israeli apartheid of Palestinian people and press the United Nations to establish a program for Palestinian dignity and liberation. Cease all military support for nations committing war crimes, right? Truth and Reconciliation Commission for U.S. intervention in Central America, South America, Africa, and Asia. End the Cuba embargo and normalize relations by removing the nation from the state-sponsored Operation Terror list. No military invasion, military or otherwise, in Haiti. Of course, stay out of Haiti. Cancel IMF and World Bank debts so-called developing nations, especially nations on the African continent, end the global patriarchy associated with violence that oppresses women around the world, and stand in solidarity with global women-led movements such as those in Afghanistan and Iran. So he's gotten a lot more comprehensive. I would beg him to get a little bit more comprehensive outside of that, but this is a great start, right? Now, in regards to people like Dr. Cornel West, Jasmine Sherman, I kept saying her name wrong, so I apologize. But people like Jasmine Sherman, Claudia de la Cruz, Dr. Cornel West, you have campaigns like this that have a lot of these policies, which I am behind. And I think one of the good things is that now that you have a lot of people who are on the left, now they're competing to be the most egalitarian and equal and equitable as far as their policies. I love this because it means that it's like, oh, well, you're for universal healthcare? Okay, hold my beer. Let's nationalize the healthcare system. Oh, you want to end the military budget? Okay, I'm going to slash the military budget even more than you. Oh, you want to increase unionization? Okay, I want to increase worker co-ops. How about that? I want them to compete for more egalitarian policies and outdo each other in that regard. Outdo each other in regards to fighting for human rights. I love that. That's what we want to see. Instead of having the lesser of two evils, have the greater of all the goods, the greatest of goods. It feels like we're in a bit of a transitionary period. That's what it feels like. And it's pretty cool. I'll be honest with you. Now, I'm going to say this. What's going on right now with the ballot access? So some people are like, well, will he have ballot access running as an independent? In short, yes. Right? So the Greens have to, and this was explained to me, the Greens have to get ballot access in a number of states in order to be able to be on the ballot, right? But also in regards to that ballot access, you have to have enough people registered as Green Party or different third parties in order to have the ballot access in that state. So I liken it to locks and keys, right? You have all these doors. Now, a lot of people have a blue key that goes to the blue lock on the door. A lot of people have red keys and red locks to the doors. You have some people who have green keys, but there's no green locks on the doors. You have some doors that have green locks, but not a lot of people have green keys. But everybody got a key. And everybody's key works on the just general independent lock. So you could be somebody who is a Democrat, but you see somebody that's independent, you can go, well, I like this independent candidate because his policy is actually more aligned with me. Hell, you could be somebody that is, war could be your top priority. And you're like, yeah, I want to end this war in Ukraine. And you see it as somebody like Dr. West, who's running independent, is against the war. And so you can use that red key in that independent lock. Or you can use that blue key in that independent lock. Or you can use that green key in that independent lock. And so this allows somebody like Dr. West to cross over into many different camps, right? And say, look, you can be whatever party you want, but if you guys vote for me, these are the policies that I have. So this is, I think, something that a lot of people are taken into consideration. And he's running independent just like RFK Jr. So if a lot of people are celebrating RFK Jr. leaving the Democratic Party and running independent, well, now you got Dr. West also that's running independent. So, and this is another point that I think is very important. Because there's really no Democratic primary, all eyes now are like, everybody's like, okay, Joe Biden's Democrat. There's no primary really to consider. So whatever. Now people can put their focus on, okay, who's running outside the Democratic Party? Because now you have RFK Jr. running outside the Democratic Party, right? Outside of duopoly, really. You have Dr. Cornel West that's running outside of duopoly. Dr. Shiva is also running, but there's not that many people talking about him, right? So you have independents that are running that are going to go all the way to the general. Now, whether they make it to the debates or not, it remains to be seen. They should be able to debate, but knowing corporate media, they're not going to want to. But I would think somebody like, and hopefully this stuff about people like, hopefully this stuff, these accusations about Russell Brand aren't true. I'm hoping they're not. And I hope that, it isn't. But if it is, I side with the victims. But somebody like Russell Brand could host a debate with the nominees in the general, because he has like 5 million subscribers, right? As much as I don't agree with him, but Tucker Carlson, he's free from corporate media, so he could host a debate and have all the candidates. He's talked to Dr. Cornel West before, right? So he literally can actually get more numbers than corporate media ever can. So the time is ripe for people who are running independent outside of any party. The time is ripe for that. I see it as a net positive. What do you think? Do you think it's a net positive, or do you still see something wrong? And some of you guys are going to get mad at me for this, but what if, now hear me out. What if the hiring of Peter Dow was actually a blessing in disguise? What if Peter Dow actually influenced this and it now makes Dr. Cornel West more viable in the general? What if? He was trying to get them all to run independent. Now Dr. Cornel West is running independent. His website's more comprehensive now. I don't know, man. I don't know. Just asking that question. See what you guys think. But let's get to the chat, man. If you guys have not, please make sure to like the stream. I think these are some interesting questions that we need to ask ourselves, man. Yeah. So, and I know a lot of people are talking about, I know CJ, he might be live right now talking about it, but, and if he is, I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to jump off the stream once I'm done and I'm going to talk to him. Savvy's going to be talking about this with Dr. Jill Stein later this evening at 8 o'clock on her channel. Let's have this conversation. Oop. And let me put this up too. All right, so let me go to the Rockfin chat first. I know Roger got some things to say. I haven't even looked yet. I know he got some things to say. Yup, I knew it. All right. Thanks for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. He says, JB, please put these two websites in YouTube chat for whoever, to help whoever run a CBI amendment into California Constitution that outlaw private equity from owning hospitals and nursing homes, clinics, dialysis centers, and medical facilities, etc. Okay, so I'm going to put these in the chat. Shout out to you, whoever. All right. And let me get the next one. Good deal, Roger, for sharing these as well. Because, yeah, put these in the chat. And I'll continue. All right, whoever. Those links I put in the chat, whoever, those are from Roger. Right? Okay. Let's continue. All right, said, yep. Sabby alerted me to the West Public Bank. I shot back to her the minimum wage, and Blue alerted me to provide a pathway to worker co-ops included. Okay. He says, the best way to make childcare free is to create an economy where a family can live on one child working. Or one parent of one child working. I think that's what he meant. Allowing another parent to stay home to wait for kids to get home from school. I DM'd you the screenshot outlining his work co-op policy. Greens, instead of pushing politicians, should prioritize getting together with the Fairness Project and Ballot Initiative Strategy Center and push citizen ballot initiatives, preferably as amendments. I agree with that. He says, in states where voters don't have option to place their own amendments on ballot, Greens should take this time and run state lawmaker candidates that push for putting a legislative initiative before voters to ratify into their state constitutions that give us option to place their own amendments on the ballot as amendments to be ratified into state constitutions, even if it means running Green as an independent candidate. Interesting. He said, independence is a universal key. You see what I've been saying about what I look like without parties now. Got it. Yep. I'm the painter putting paint into the canvas with a vision of the picture in my head. Now that no one quite sees yet. With each brush stroke, I said brush, not Roger getting freaky over here. He said, the picture will begin to shape in the minds of those after a certain number of brush strokes. Never mind. Question is, what number will it be for you? 100th, 2000th? That's also interesting. Good point, Roger. Thank you so very much. I'm seeing the brush strokes, bro. Thank you so very much. I wanted to go here. It says, where he says there may be various reasons for him to want to go independent. Odds are certain fractions within the Greens don't appreciate an outsider taking over. That's another variable that is also to be considered, Wordy. I agree. That's another one. Let me see. Roger Mail says, Lucy hit me to it. She owns a small business. Thank her. Oh, thanks to Lucy as well. Thank you. All right. Shout out to Lucy. Let's go to the rest of the chat. Yes, Bryce Smith said, oh man, this Cornel West running independent move is getting everyone fired up. Yeah, it's a lot. Colin says, often independents have a much higher signature thresholds to meet, the much shorter time periods to gather them. Okay. Thank you so much. Quantum Alchemist says, oh, come on, JB. You know how the 1% operate by now. Of course. Henstey said, whatever happened to the League of Women Voters? It's all paywalled and gate kept. Oh, Nick just hopped on RB. Okay, all right, that's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be fun. Commander says, like the villain in Marvel, can't remember his name, but he hit a woman and they went after him just because he's black. But the Flash can be a creep and Lee making movies without charges. Oh, keep and keep. Let's say, but the Flash can be a creep and keep making movies without charges. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you're talking about yeah. You're talking about Jonathan Majors. Got you. Versus Ezra Miller. Thank you so much for the super chat. Roger, he says Waddy is right. Also, you can show the worker co-op image IDM. Okay. Let me share that really quick. Roger sent a photo. Roger sent a photo. Oh, how did I miss this, Roger? Holy crap. Okay. All right. Man. Okay. Roger, look, just slap me, man. Just slap me in the face. Roger, he says, Cornel West, increased federal support for businesses established as worker-owned cooperatives and other alternative worker models. I can't believe I missed that. My apologies, Dr. West and Roger. Wow. Okay. Well, shoot. I consider myself corrected. Holy crap. Thank you very much for showing me. All right. Well, shit. Well, all right. Oh, that's okay, Gamer for Life. You can always watch it on the rewatch, and plus I'll put in chapters. All right. So Lucy hit me to that. Thank you to Lucy. Holy shit. I want to make sure I give my flowers to whoever is due. Thank you. All right. So, wow. Whoever says, "Ooh, a worker co-op," the only WC I heard was the water closet. Oh gosh, that's funny. All right. Let me see. Whoever says we need to stop worshiping the job and acting as if a person is nothing more than a human being, then the job they do is to prevent starvation, homelessness. We are not our jobs. We're human beings. I agree. Yeah. Focus more on the human, not the job. Yeah. All right. So let me check and see if there's any more. Okay, that's it for Rockfin. Let me check the Rumble rants to see if there's any Rumble rants as well. Okay. Hits and hits and giggles says duopoly is a pretty good call. I call the oligarchy. Hits and Giggle says, do you ever think we'll have a hot war with Russia? I hope not, but the United States, they're going to try. Let me see. Let me see. Hits and Giggle says, why do you try to predict elections? You know they're controlled. Would your time not be better focused on anything else? Predicting events or policies, staying vigilant is one, but there. Here's the thing. Like I said before, and I'll say it again, on this channel, we're focused on the policies And I use the policies in order to open conversations to build class consciousness and solidarity with workers. So while I'm doing the work on the ground, if people are paying more attention to the policies of Dr. Cornel West, then I can say, hey, let's do these actions on the ground, this direct action on the ground, so that we can actually help our workers. Because, you know, and I'll say if he doesn't win, you know, which is a high likelihood, then what we can do is still build more apparatuses, dual power, so that we can shut down the system collectively as a group instead of relying on heroes, right? Because we save us. That's the point that I would like to mean. So that just gives you a little bit of a synopsis into my head. It's no heroes because, look, let's be honest. Dr. Cornel West is not a hero. Jasmine Sherman is not a hero. Claudia de la Cruz is not a hero. RFK Jr. is not a hero. None of these people are heroes. And we should not put ourselves in this mindset that, oh, well, oh my God, they're major disappointments, so all is lost. Or, oh my God, they're doing all these great things, and so we need to just depend on them. No, we save us. Use their platforms as a way to open the conversations, but still work on the ground. Do not stop and keep going beyond that. That's what I mean. And I hope I clarified just a little bit, you know what I mean? So, but thank you so very much, Hits and Giggles, on the Rockfin side. I'm sorry, the Rumble side. Appreciate your comments. And thank you so, Molly Little Bird. Thank you. It says, good discussion today. I like Richard. Yes, we all like Richard. Richard's really cool. I just wanted to make sure I include that. So I gotta get going because I got some people to talk to. And if Nick and CJ are still alive, I'll carry over to there just to get my thoughts a little bit. But look, this has been a wild day for news. There's a lot more that we can get into. And oh, by the way, this Saturday, wait, what time? I think it's 1 o'clock. I'll be on live on this channel on Saturday, so that I'll be talking to Professor Anthony Zinkas. Yes, at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time this Saturday on this channel. So be sure to also be on this channel and ready to talk to Professor Anthony Zinkas. So that'll be a really great discussion. Stay tuned for clips. I will be clipping this live stream so you guys can catch it all, as well as if you guys have not already, subscribe to my Substack. You guys go to jbfont.substack.com so you guys are aware whenever I go live or upload clips, or if I have any new articles that I write, you guys can also be abreast of there. Roger. Please make sure to like the stream. If you guys have not, you guys can actually go to the shop portion. I also have a merch store in the bottom. If you guys would like to, you guys can go there as well. And a shout out and thank you to all the patrons on Patreon, people who buy me a coffee, anybody who are members. Yes, I also have memberships on here, or anybody that donates to me via super chats, or anybody that donates to me through the PayPal and the description below as well. So thank you so very much to all of you. Now, look, as we end this stream, I just want to say thank you to Richard Medhurst for joining. This was an awesome stream. I did not expect the stream to go this long, but I had to cover that whole thing regarding Dr. Cornel West because it was just too interesting of a subject to pass up, to wait until Saturday. But look, water your plants, water yourselves. Leave the world better than you found it. I'll be doing my readings for Assata Shakur's autobiography, as well as Dr. Devon Price's Laziness Does Not Exist. Stay tuned for that. Smoke them if you got them. Drink them if you got them. If you ain't got them, then watch something funny. Watch something great and inspiring, because joy is revolutionary. Now, keep focusing on the policies. Do work on the ground. And if you guys are in Orlando and want to meet and greet with the Orlando Revolutionary Blackout Network Mutual Aid Chapter, join us on this Saturday at the Drunken Monkey Coffee Bar at 444 North Bumby Avenue, Orlando, Florida 32803. I can't believe I actually remember that. We will see you there so you guys can volunteer for when we do more actions on the ground here in Orlando for mutual aid as well. I can't wait to see all of you there, all the new people. Look, and stay focused. It's about helping out our fellow workers and poor people, because that's how we change the world in a positive direction. And mwah, forehead kisses. I love you. Take care. I'm not gonna be here for long. I'm not gonna be here for long.